Welcome to my channel, where mysteries unfold, strange tales come to life, and the unexplained takes center stage. Here, we dive deep into eerie legends, unsolved cases, and supernatural phenomena that defy logic. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Brace yourself, keep an open mind, and join us as we uncover the world's greatest mysteries. Please listen to the story, Baby Monitor. My name is Sean, and I've actually been on the show before. I told a story about when I experienced some paranormal type situations in my childhood homes. The experiences had dwindled off for most of my early adulthood until around 2020. July of 2020, I lost my mother. Shortly after the COVID pandemic had started to peak, my mother took a turn for the worst and passed away unexpectedly. Shortly after that, I found out that I was pregnant. This was not something that me or my boyfriend had planned. It was very unexpected, and I kind of took it as a gift, from my mom, because we had been talking before she passed away about how excited she was at the idea of becoming a grandma. And I told her, I don't even know if I can have kids, so we'll see what happens. And then, shortly after she passed away, I found out I was pregnant. We were in a one-bedroom apartment at this point, and we decided that it was time to try to find ourselves. Actual house, a space where we would be able to grow as a family. And I started house shopping. We were looking for houses for months. But then, one came on the market. That happened to be on the same street that my childhood home that I had originally experienced a lot of the paranormal activities was on. I decided to go take a look around. There wasn't anything particularly special about it yet. There was something that drew me to it. I can't explain what it was, but there was just an energy in the house that pulled me to decide to try to convince my husband that this is the house that we need to buy. He was not a fan, but when it came down to it, everything seemed good about it. There wasn't, a whole lot that had to be done to the house before we moved in, so we decided to put down our offer, and we got the house. December of 2021, we moved into the home, and that first night, things got weird. I actually can't recall entirely what happened. That night, it happened to me, and I was in a state that I can't really explain. So, I'm gonna let my husband, Gordon, take over for a moment. The first night in the house was a hectic one. Unpacked everything as we could, and we were decided, let's just go to sleep. We're all exhausted. Let's just go to sleep and relax. And we're laying there, we finally pass out. Felt like minutes. Early morning comes, and I feel this jolt on my chest, like something hit me. I look over to my right. My girlfriend at the time is right next to me. She looks funny. Her eyes are open, but she's not really saying anything. She's kind of just looking at me, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's not responding. It was strange for a second or two. And I was just trying to, nudge her and stuff. And all of a sudden, she's just starts speaking in tongues almost, saying different names I didn't recognize. She was speaking multiple languages all at once. It's a very strange situation. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe she's having a stroke or something. I wasn't even sure. So I'm okay, so try to wake her up or something. So I'm just trying to wake her up, and she's just flapping her arms around and yelling and trying to get my attention, even though I'm literally staring at her. It felt like she was almost possessed or something, like she was being taken over by something. This is early in the morning, too. Sun's barely coming up, so I'm trying to hold her up. I physically had to hold her up with my shoulder. In the bed to try to keep her up without laying down, trying to shove apple juice into her throat. And finally, as I get probably a cup and a half down her throat, she's finally kind of saying English words. The weirdest part is, she had no recollection of anything. We had full different language conversations, trying to decipher what we were trying to say to each other, but she was just only halfway there, and her eyes were just glazed over. One of the weirdest situations I've ever experienced in my life. The weirdest part about it was that the only thing that I can recall was feeling like I was freezing, and I was trying to tell Gordon, "I'm so cold, Gordon. I'm so cold," but the words wouldn't come out. And that's all I remember from that experience. I finally kind of came to. And he told me that that had all happened. I thought I was just having like a bad dream. And then from there, I just proceeded to experience other weird events. One in particular that still sits very heavy with me was, we had probably been in the house 3 or 4 months. At this point, I had moved my son into his room. He was around 8 or 9 months old, and that was really hard for me. Because when we were in the apartment, we had one of those side-sitting cribs, and he was right there next to me. And the doctor was like, "Well, you need to get him in his own room, in his own crib, and just being in this new environment." It was difficult for me. So there were a lot of nights where I would wake up very easily from like the slightest noise, the slightest creak in the floor, anything like that. And my husband is the complete opposite. He could sleep through an explosion. One night around the summertime, we were sleeping, and I was woken up very abruptly by a large banging. Sound like something had fallen downstairs. I didn't get freaked out too much at first. I assumed maybe one of my pets knocked something down. We have a couple of cats and had a dog at the time. But then I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. They didn't sound like paws or anything like. They were like loud boots, stomping on the creaky wood of my stairs. I'm sitting up in bed at this point. I'm trying to wake up Gordon. He's not reacting. And I'm like panicking, because I'm thinking somebody broke into my house. Since we're in an older house, there's about an inch or so of space between the floor and our door, so you can see people's feet and things. I saw a pair of feet boots settle in front of the door, and I am fully panicked at this point. I can't get my husband to wake up. He's snoring, having a great time, and I'm like, I'm about to die. And all of a sudden, as things seem to quiet down, my door starts to aggressively shake and shake, like somebody's trying to get in, but they can't figure out how to turn the knob. And the door is slamming and slamming and slamming. And finally, I'm like, Gordon. He wakes up and it stops. I'm crying at this point. I am in tears, begging him to do something, that someone is in the house. Someone's gonna hurt us, someone's gonna hurt our baby. So he gets up in a stupor, goes and opens the door, and there's nobody there. He goes and checks downstairs. Nothing has fallen. Nothing's out of place. To this day, that still sits with me, because there are still times where I will wake up in the middle of the night and I can hear the door jiggling. Not as violent as that first time, but like somebody's trying to figure out how to get into my room. At first, when some of the footsteps started, I put it in my head that maybe it was my mother, keeping an eye on us. She was always like a huge believer in the paranormal. she always believed that the ghosts, or entity, that we were dealing with. In my childhood, homes were my grandmother. She always kind of put it in my head that the people that we care about most stay with us for a while after they're gone. But the way that it behaved in that moment, it didn't feel like something safe. It didn't feel like something that was there for a good reason. As time went on, it seems that whatever this thing is that we're dealing with has taken a liking to my son. So, Alec, my son turned 1. He was just learning how to talk, and he would just like giggle and kind of like whisper to himself in bed. We didn't think too much of it at first, until one particular night. We have this video baby monitor that when a sound goes off, it'll turn the video on so that you can see into the room. We had it at the time face down right, so that we could see him in his crib. This particular time, the monitor turned on and I just heard like a grumbling. I couldn't figure out what it was at first. I thought maybe it picked up, like the air conditioner or something in his room. But it was kind of like a bra, bra, bra kind of sound. So I went to look at the monitor, and I see my son just sitting up in his crib, talking to the wall. He's giggling and whispering and having a babbly conversation with something in the wall. And at this point, he wasn't old enough to really be talking so I couldn't ask him about it. But this was something that continued to happen for the last 2 years, where the monitor would pop on and he's sitting up, sometimes asleep, sometimes not talking to someone or something. One particular night when he was around 2.5, he was in a twin bed that we have in a frame that's like on the ground, because we didn't want him to fall out of bed. And this night, the same kind of thing happened where the monitor turned on. There was a weird, scratchy, grumbly sound, and when I went to check Alec, my son was sitting up in the middle of the bed, just staring straight ahead. And I'm looking at him, and I see the room is dark. And yet there was just in the corner of his room, behind his bed, there's just this giant black figure. And I'm thinking I'm seeing things at this point, and I'm getting ready to go up there. I put one foot on the step, and my son looks up at the camera. He goes, "Mommy, Mommy." In that moment, the darkness disappeared, and he just laid back down and went to sleep. I was just frozen on the stairs, not sure if I actually saw what I saw. It's unsettling, because I don't know if whatever this thing is friendly, if it's got a motive, or why it seems to suddenly be attracted to my son. My son's obsessed with ghosts. I'm not sure where he even got the knowledge of ghosts. He asks my husband to play ghosts with him every night. He wants him to put like a sheet over him and go, "Ooh," and like pretend to be a ghost. No idea where he even learned that word. Just this morning, I went in to get him to go to daycare, and he gets up and he goes, "Mommy." Guess what? My friend did exercises with me after Daddy left. I was like, "Who's your friend?" And he just goes, "I don't know." Part of me wants to think that maybe it is my mom watching over him and coming to see him, but the way that whatever this is treated me and treated my husband, it's hard to be confident in something like that. There was a time recently, Alec was in the living room playing. We were cleaning up the kitchen. I had just let the dogs out the back door. I turned my back to where we have like their water bowl, and when I turned back, there was a dead mouse lying next to the water bowl. And I come up to it, and it's a mouse. And so I'm freaking out. I get my husband to come and look at it, and he's like, "This is stiff. This has been dead for a while. It looked like something had spit it up." But my dogs were outside, The only ones that could have possibly, had a mouth big enough to transport this thing, were not in the house. I had my husband throw it out. I go to open the back door to let the dogs back in, and there's another one in the exact same position, in the exact same state, right on the back step of my house. We clean that one up. The next day, there's another one in the exact same spot. I can't explain that either. One time, I was trying to get him out the door, and it got to the point where he was getting very, very upset. And I'm like, dude, we've got to go. We've got to go. You have a doctor's appointment. We can't be late. And he got very upset. And he looked at me and he went, Mommy, no. And as he yelled, no, my bathroom door slammed shut. I've heard a lot in the past about how, ghosts will react to emotions of the people in the space that they are residing in. So I can't help but wonder if that was the ghost, taking his side to try to get me to leave him alone. But a lot of the times, when there are arguments happening in the house, or my son is throwing a fit, that door will slam. I don't know how to explain it. In my previous story, I had talked about the house that I lived in. It's on the same street, and at that time, when my mom and my aunt were fighting, the lights all shut off and things were slamming. And so part of me feels like it could be the same thing, where it seems like whatever it is reacts when there's a lot of negativity going on in the house, or negative emotions. It doesn't feel the same, if that makes sense. This whole street is just weird. There's been a lot of rumor between neighbors about seeing figures just standing across the street, looking into windows. Whatever we're all seeing don't seem to be aggressive or threatening, but they're there, watching. So I don't know if I made a mistake moving back here, moving back into this space, where I had once dealt with this stuff before. But that's a genuine fear of mine, and a genuine fear that I have now accidentally passed. Whatever this is from me to my son. If you haven't listened to it yet, you can find Sean's story by clicking on the link in the description of this episode, and if there, the story that you want to share with us. Head on over to truescarystory.com and fill out the form ad. Free. Listening is also available for our Scary Plus members. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Witch Book. A family moves into a beautiful home in San Antonio, but what they thought was a fresh start quickly turned into a nightmare. Don't listen alone. My name is Edwin, and here is Veronica's true scary story. This dates back to August of 2018. My parents had decided to move from Round Rock, which is north of Austin. This happened to be a perfect timing for my younger sister and I, because I was transferring out of community college to a university in San Antonio while she was graduating high school and gonna go to a college in San Antonio as well. It was a beautiful house. It was a 2-story house, all brick in a gated community, which was super fancy to us. About 6 months into living there, things really started to pick up. Instantly when you walk in, it had an eerie feeling to it. The first instance is I was in my restroom. You can see the hallway, and it was a pretty long hallway connecting all 3 rooms. I saw my sister walk out, and I said something along the lines hey, what are you doing? Earlier, my parents said they're gonna go grocery shopping, and I thought she was going with them, but she didn't reply back to me. I started saying what are you doing? But I couldn't see her. So then I started looking all around the house, And when I went outside to go check if, the car was gone, and I saw I was home alone, which just really freaked me out. So I kind of brushed off a little bit, thinking, okay, maybe I'm just seeing things tricking my mind. A few months passed by again. So now, March of 2019, it just became super bad, actually. My mom got really sick, which prevented her from working. So she had to stay home full time. My room happened to be right above my parents' room, and so my mom was in her room a lot. And she would tell me sometimes, or text me at least and be like, hey, are you home? I'd be like, no, I'm in class or doing something. She would tell me she would hear footsteps in my room, sound like someone was walking around, and she didn't think too much about it. She just thought, maybe, yeah, I'm just so bored I'm starting to hear things. And because of that, my dad got my mom a small puppy. He was a month old at that age. He was already starting to bark. At the bottom of the stairs, he was terrified to go up the stairs, actually. He will only go upstairs if one of us were with him. Already that was giving me a sign is something really here in this house? The attic was right above our room. Oddly enough, it was in this hallway. There was an entrance to the attic, and shortly after that, my sister starts to smell something super bad. My dad goes, checks it out. He comes back down, and it's a dead rat. But also, he finds this box. And in that box was a weird book of some sort, which had carvings into it. You could tell there were blood marks on it. You could tell there were. Maybe a piece of bone in there. As well, my mom's kind of superstitious and shows. She was already do not open that. Do not touch it, just go ahead and burn it. But my dad doesn't believe in any of this. So he said, no, I'm gonna open it. He opens the book. And everything was in Latin, writing, and images and just stuff you see kind of in a witch book. And so it freaked me out. And my sister and my dad was okay, Mom is right, let's burn it. So we go in the backyard, and my dad just starts a fire and throws that whole box in there. It almost looked like the flames were starting to turn blue, like it wasn't from this world almost. After he did that, it kind of made the spirits mad a bit. More time passes. One night I was in my room, and I could hear what I thought was my sister calling my name. And I said, hey, what's up? And she didn't say anything back. I go downstairs because I was okay. I heard her literally say my name. And not just my name, I have a family nickname. And it's only she calls me that. And so I go downstairs, I'm probably getting a snack. And she comes to the front door, and I say, hey, Warrant, didn't you just call my name? She goes, no. I was outside the whole time, and that just freaked me out even more. That's when I really told her what was going on. Because not only did I hear my name, but I saw her months before. So I tell her what was happening, and she just kind of looks at me blankly, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm really going crazy. Well, my parents overhear us in the kitchen, talking about this, and that's when my dad says, oh, we've been hearing things too. They start to tell me that downstairs. When they go to bed, they always close the door, but they kind of stay up a little bit and watch TV, say they've been hearing footsteps in the kitchen, and they assumed it was us. Well, one night, they got scared because that door closed and they hear big footsteps, outside their door, and it's a small mini hall that you kind of have to turn into to get to their room. They thought it was one of us, and so they start calling out our names. We didn't say anything back, but they could hear it breathing. Well, he got up, open the door, nothing. And they scared both my mom and my dad while all this was going on. We were all just kind of keeping this inside with each other. Because I think none of us wanted to believe something was going on. So to hear that my mom and my dad and my sister, that we all have been hearing or seeing something, it was just spooky. My parents ended up reaching out to the previous owners of the house, because technically, my parents were renting out the house, and the owners, for whatever reason, didn't want to live there anymore. Well, my parents just reached down. They're like, hey, like this stuff has been going on. Has stuff like this been happening to you all? When y'all lived here, and they said, oh no, nothing like that happened. But I think you should know this. The man had his mother living with them, and she happened to die in that house, in the room that I was sleeping in. When I find out this information, I think I turned cold. It just confirmed all the things that were happening around in that house to me, especially more towards me, because I feel like I was hearing the most and seeing the most things compared to my family. They also admitted that it was just her upstairs most of the time, so they didn't know what she was up to. But they were here late at night, walking around, talking, and they assumed that she was on the phone. One night, my sister said she was in her room, and she heard what sounded like me going through my stuff in my, like I said, we shared a wall together for our rooms. So if I was going through my drawers, or even turn on the TV, she could hear it. And she kind of just says like, hey, starts talking to me, but I never say anything back. Maybe 5 minutes pass, and she hears more noise coming from my room again. So she really gets up and sees that my door is closed, and was like, hey, like, I'm coming in to check on you. When she opens the door, she sees one of my drawers pull open. Right when she opens the door, but when she sees the drawer pull open, she realizes no one's in my room. There is only one instance where we all saw. So, something at the same time. October of 2019. Kid you not, it was Halloween night. We just got done trick-or-treating, and the front door actually was this glass-type front door where you could kind of see through it. So we had the front porch light on because we had just got done trick-or-treating. My mom's in the living room. My dad was actually out that night, so he wasn't home. But my sister and I were in the dining table, and if you lean backwards from your chair, in the dining table, you can see towards the front door. We hear the doorbell go off. And of course, in a 2-story house, that doorbell ring echoes everywhere. I lean back towards my chair from the dining table. When I see this tall figure, it's Halloween night, so of course costumes. And I was thinking to myself, maybe some teenagers are at the door or a teenager, because I could tell it was one person. So I grabbed the candy ball. They ring the doorbell again. At this point, my mom and my sister behind me, kind of telling me to be careful, because it was late, but also like, yes, just get the candy out. As soon as I open the door, nothing. The shadow's gone, no one's at the front door. That freaked my mom out the most, because she's always just heard footsteps and heard things, but she never actually saw anything. So when she saw that no one showed up at the door, after we saw a shadow, we could tell someone was at the front door. That just freaked her out even more. I'm in my room one night, I go to bed like normal. But except this time, my mom's dog, he decides to sleep with me. and he never sleeps with me, but he decided to. We go to bed, and I always sleep with my door open. But in the hallway, since it was such a long hallway, we had a nightlight, so it lit up the whole hallway. I could see, like, if someone was walking in the hallway due to, like, the shadows and the passing of the nightlight. We're in bed, I'm dead asleep, and all of a sudden I hear our dog start to growl. I've never heard him growl before, but he starts to growl. It wakes me up, and I look over at him like, what is he growling at? And I see that his head is towards my door. So I look to my right, and I see in the corner of my eye, there are these long fingers with like razor-sharp nails. I can see it through the shadow. And as it moves its fingers, it starts to crackle. Like it just starts to make like bones popping noise. I realized his fingers and his whole hand is starting to cover the light switch, which is the only light switch. I have to put the light on. I didn't have a lamp in that room. I just freaked out. I didn't know what to do. Like instantly, I'm just thinking to myself, whatever. This is this demon, this monster. Like it literally wants me in the dark. It's covering the light switch. I just got up and I decided I'm gonna touch it. Like I'm gonna touch it. Because I need to turn this light switch on, and I did. And when I touched it, it felt scaly and very hard, and it kind of scratched me a bit. Light switch goes on. I'm hysterical. My mom's dog runs out of my room barking. Going down the stairs, I'm screaming towards my sister, and I'm waking her up. Like, please. Like, wake up, you need to hear what I'm about to say next. Because I'm not lying. She's listening to me. She's telling me to calm down, like everything's okay. You're okay. I could tell she didn't believe me fully. But when I showed her the cut on my finger, I think that's when she kind of realized, okay, yeah, you're probably right. My parents come upstairs, they're like, what's going on? I tell them the same story. And I think they really believed me because I was just so hysterical that I was not going to sleep in that room for the rest of the night. When I finally slept in that room, if anything, it just made it worse for me because I was having constant nightmares and terrors. Every night I will wake up screaming of like doing evil things to my family, which I've never had experienced that before. To this day, that really still shakes me to my core, truly. Because I have had previous experiences in the past, I am the most sensitive in my family to hear, see, feel things, but I've never actually had anything touch me, or me touch it that was like the pushing factor for me to get out of the house. I had a feeling this entity was just going to continue to talk to me and play with me because it knew I was the one that could sense, see, and hear them the most out of the rest of my family. So I moved out after that. My parents and my sister both say like they haven't heard much or seen anything after that. I was so scared that this entity followed me really because I touched it. So I didn't know what was going to happen. Thankfully, I have not seen or heard anything since. But I definitely do get nightmares about it still. Me back in that room. Me just being so still, shaking to my core, feeling I can't move. January 2020. My family decides to move out. And on the last day, my mom, she usually likes to take video recordings of the house, empty, just like for her records, and just to be like, oh, this was a fun memory. So my dad takes the video instead. He's taking the video around the house. He's going upstairs and he hits my room and he says, as soon as he hits my room, the phone goes dead. It was fully charged. It was working properly. And it just died all of a sudden. And when it died at the same time, he heard my mom call his name. He goes out, goes downstairs, doesn't see her, doesn't even see my sister. So he calls them. And he realizes he's home alone as well. Because they're gone. He gathered whatever he had left and took out of the house. He waited outside. He did not want to wait inside the house anymore, because that just freaked him out more. That was the last of it. We don't know what happened, who moved in after us. We told the couple that whoever they rent the house to, next to please advise, someone did pass away because things did happen. That was a spooky house I've ever lived in. And I'll definitely remember it. I definitely do sleep with the nightlights on. I do believe now that I am a stronger spiritual person. I do pray more. I got more into church after that, which helps me in my belief system. But I definitely get more hesitant when I do sense something, because I don't know if it's that same thing that's following me, or if it's something new completely. And I hope that I never experience anything like that. Again, you can get these stories without ads by trying out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com and support our small team behind the scenes. At the same time, and also, please drop 5 stars for us in the reviews for the show, and we'll keep the stories going. If you have a story you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Curse of the Nightly Visitors, in South Africa, especially within the Afrikaans language community. There's this superstition that if a person is born with the sac still around them, I think they call it an amniotic sac, that you got a link with the spirit world, where you can see or experience supernatural entities, or force in some way. It was sort of frowned upon. You don't talk about this. You don't talk about seeing spirits. My mom and I were actually 2 in our family, born with that sort of thing. My dad passed away 8 years ago. It will be 8 years this year. My mom sold the house, and she bought a new house. What she didn't know at that point was, the lady who owned the house before her husband had cancer and passed away in the house. Not every night, but every good once in a while. She's been having what we like to call nightly visitors. The first month or so after my mom moved in, she was sleeping in her bedroom and she heard this loud noise, like there was a printer printing whatever sort of document next to her and someone typing on the keyboard. The first thought my mom had was, "Oh no, there's someone in the house. I'm going to be robbed. Something's going to happen." She turned on the light. She could still hear the noise. It was coming from inside the house. She looked around, and it's a small place, and there was nothing there. She thought, I'm just going to go back to sleep. Maybe it's just me hallucinating. Maybe it's all the stress from the move. She goes back to sleep. She gets woken up at 3 a.m., same thing, for the next couple of nights. It's the same story over and over again. There's these people typing on a keyboard of a computer. There's a noise of a printer. There's paper being crumpled up. General office noise. My mom got fed up with it, and she said, "What the hell is your problem? Leave me alone. Just be quiet. I want nothing to do with you." And the noise stopped. Then a few nights later, the noise picked up again. She said the same thing, "Leave me alone. I've got nothing to do with you. What is your problem?" And then a few days later, she got a call from someone who was relatively close to the family to say her husband passed away. and my mom first thought, oh, it's a coincidence, maybe it's stress nightmares, things like that. This has been going on for a few years now. Every couple of months, she will get a visitor or hear a noise or something, and the first thought is, someone is breaking in. Oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? And then she turns on the light. She still hears the noise from inside the house. She even checked in that space between the roof. There was no one there. And then, a few days later, another family friend passed away. Someone she knows. This has been very upsetting to my mom. She was actually in tears because she can't sleep. She doesn't want to be bothered with this. While my dad was still alive, my dad was super strict. Something was either biblical or it wasn't worth it. And she didn't want to talk about it because my dad would basically emotionally break her down if she mentioned something weird like that, and they never had any real experiences. Up until my dad passed away, and it really heightened when my mom moved into that house that she has now. He was very strict in his religious beliefs. I'm not knocking religion, even though I'm not religious myself. But it's one of those things that you don't touch, it's evil. It's of the devil, you stay away from it. After that, she actually saw a full body figure of my dad. He was standing there in the doorway to the bedroom. And he said, "I'm sorry. It's my fault, you're going to be okay." Sort of that comfort he never gave. Really gave her in life. He's now trying to give her after his passing. It gets to the point where I'm also starting to dream. I've been having dreams about people who passed away, or going to pass away, but I don't know it at the time. And my mom was telling the story, and she said, "You know what? You were born with that thing around you. Maybe you can still see spirits." I dream it, she actually sees, hears and experience it physically. I see faces. I see people that I don't actually really know. I would go to my mom, and my mom said, "Oh, I had one of those noises again." People were coming into my house. They were making noise. I had to tell them to get lost. And I said, "No, I've been having a dream about this. And this person, I don't really know them." "Do you know them?" "I know it's this far-removed relative." And then a few minutes later, my mom gets a call. "Oh, this person passed away." Maybe. It's just stress for me that I'm actually seeing this, or dreaming this. I don't want anything to see something and see people. "Oh, you're gonna die." What happens if it's somebody I really care about? At night, I'm actually almost too scared to go to sleep, because I'm not worried about nightmares. I actually enjoy nightmares, strangely enough, because it gives me good short story ideas. But when I see faces of specific people, I'm just scared. I'm going to see someone I really care about. Someone I love, my wife, my son, my mom, my brother or sister. Then that means, oh my goodness, something bad's going to happen to them. A week ago, my aunt passed away from a long health battle. The night before, it was the noisiest she's ever experienced. She actually got up, moved around the house, and she was cussing out whatever was there. She was telling him, "Get the hell out. I want nothing to do with you. Leave me alone. Stop it." Normally, whatever is there would quieten down, and almost sort of that feeling of, "I'm sorry about that, I apologize. I'll leave you alone now." It carried on and on and on, until my mom yelled, so much so that the neighbor actually contacted her and asked her, "Are you okay?" "What's going on? Is someone inside the house?" "This is number..." No. I'm fine, it's just, There's this noise and it's irritating me, and it's got me worried. I thought there was someone inside my house, and then that neighbor went to the other neighbor and asked him, why are you making a noise? And the neighbor said, no, I'm not making a noise. I heard a scream, and I'm up too. And then my mom eventually had to admit to them, look, this is what happens. I'm seeing, I'm hearing, and it's got me freaked out because I know my sister is sick. Then that same night, about 3 a.m., I had a dream about my aunt. My aunt and I were never very close. She always used to yell at me, call me names, things like that. But I had a dream about her too, and I thought, oh no, if she hasn't passed away, she's going to pass away, and soon. So about 7:30 that morning, I'm on my way to work and my mom phones. She said my aunt passed away, and I told her I had a dream about her, that she was yelling at me, moaning at me about something that I did as a kid the last couple of times. My dreams and her experiences have actually synced up. I'm normally a very skeptical person, but I'm a skeptic open to the possibility of something. But it actually freaked me out. Now that what I first thought was coincidence, now I'm actually starting to think, okay, maybe there's something to it. And that's what's got me scared. I'm to the point now that I'm actually want to see a psychiatrist or a doctor or something that can maybe prescribe medication that I can sleep but not dream. My mom doesn't even want to come visit my house because now she's telling me there's something inside my house after I turn off the lights, or even with the lights on. I feel like there's someone actually watching me. I don't know who. I don't know what it could be. I don't know if they're friendly or malevolent in any way. But I just feel like there's something watching me. But I don't know what the intentions are. My mom has a theory about it herself, because she came from a very abusive childhood. Serious abuse. She thinks maybe the way she was born and the life that she had as a child might have made her a conduit or something, that she can actually pick up on these signals because she was very good at sensing when abuse was about to happen or when something bad was about to happen. She has a very, very good gut feeling. And I think since my dad passed away, since her parents have passed away years ago, that there isn't this blockage anymore. And now everything is coming to her tenfold. Lately, my mom hasn't had any visitors or noises, but she still has that fear in her, that if she hears something, oh my goodness, who's going to be next? Luckily, my son wasn't born with that. My sister and my brother weren't born with that. So it seems like my mom and I are the only two people in our family who actually sees or experiences these things. It's not fun. This is something I want no part of. And if I see or dream about somebody that I really care about, I'm too scared about what's going to happen. Like I always say to my wife, I just want peace in my life, and that's it. You can listen to these stories without ads and support her production free for 2 weeks and then $4.99 a month and cancel whenever. Just head on over to Scary Plus. Com links are in the description of this episode. Up next, check out Horror Story, a podcast where I tell you about eerie, true events and mysteries. It's the one with the picture of a road and Horror Story in yellow letters. And if you have a story that you want to share with us, head on over to truescarystory.com. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, A Journey of Faith and Fear, I met my wife in 2004. We were married in December 2005. When me and my wife first got married, she was pursuing a career in the medical field. My mom also works in the healthcare industry at an assisted living facility in the town that we live in. She had told my wife, she said, "Hey, there is a lady that needs 24-hour care, but her family doesn't want to put her in a nursing home. They have went out and purchased her a house. They've added on a handicap accessible area, and the rest of the house would be yours. The only room that you would share would be the kitchen. You would need to cook for. Everything's paid for utilities. They're looking for people to move in and take care of her. Would you guys be interested in doing that?" We thought about it. We're like, maybe that's a good thing. We could save a little money. And we agreed. We ended up moving out of our apartment. In January of 2007, moved in with this lady. This is where things started to change for us. This lady had one family member that was just really didn't jive with me. This woman was very dark, depressing, if you will. She's never seemed to have anything good to say. Never had a smile on her face. She was never really a happy person. It was really sad, but we dealt with her. And the thing that this elderly lady that we took care of, she was legally blind. She was in a hover-round, basically. That's how she was able to get around. She'd get out of her chair and get to a mobility chair, go to the bathroom. We would just be nearby in case she needed this. She couldn't really watch TV. She would listen to it. She really liked A&E. She would watch the whole entire block of programming every night. There was a show that started. It's called Paranormal State. It was about these college students. They would go to these houses where they felt like there was supernatural activities happening there. That's really, I think, who started experimenting. Things start coming. One night, me and my wife had left Wednesday night Bible class. We come home, we were in our part of the house, which was 3-bedroom to the living room. A 1 full bathroom with a double vanity, and then a half bath that had a stand-up shower toilet. So we're in the master bathroom, standing in front of the vanity, brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed. My wife said it got really cold. All of a sudden I said, "Yeah, I did. I don't like it. There's something in this house. Let's go to the living room. Let's pray." I turn on the living room light. Me and my wife both got down in the couch, on our knees, and start praying. We're rebuking the devil. I just remember stopping. I was listening to my wife. She was crying, face buried in the pillow. All of a sudden, I heard the loudest, blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my life. I still hear it in my mind. Then there was a peace that I can't even describe that entered that room. I told my wife, I said, "Babe, it's gone." We went to bed, both slept like babies. That next Friday we had service. We had church. I stood up and I testified about it. What I didn't know was that night, this thing had left our house and went across the street. We had went to church with folks across the street. This man's name is Matt. Matt had heard my testimony Friday at church. He actually came over to my house. He told me that morning. He said I woke up out of a dead sleep. I thought somebody broke into my house. I went straight through the house, checked on the kids, they were fine. And he said something began to speak to me after that had happened. We went on just business as usual. We just lived our life. We've went several years without anything happening, until I was at a funeral. A good, close family friend of mine lost his sister in a head-on collision. She died instantly. We were at the funeral home. There were 3 people that showed up, and they were witches. They looked at me almost like telepathically. Something spoke and said, "There's 3 of us." It made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and I just looked dead at these people. And I was just like, "In Jesus' name." They never said anything to me. It was just a very wild experience. And I've never had anything like that happen since. We ended up moving it, just didn't end up working out. Taking care of that lady. We didn't have really any freedoms. We were young, and we ended up moving it into my grandma's house in Encoun. Everything was good. We didn't have any issues. Me and my wife were trying for children, and we'd end up spending thousands and thousands of dollars of fertility drug, fertilization and all that stuff. And we were just like, okay, whatever, we'll just adopt. This man is an older gentleman out of Atlanta. Georgia Preach, just a really amazing message. All about faith and healing. He was closing and said, "If you believe that God's able to touch, then can you just come up here and let me pray for you right now?" My wife, without hesitation, went up there. Pray for her. She heard a voice give her a date. So she went to her phone, puts the date in, and it was exactly 9 months. On the very day that it's saved in her phone, she got a phone call from her friend that she worked with. She called me. She said, "If you and your husband looking to adopt, my mother's friend has custody of her granddaughter." My wife hangs up the phone, and she just instantly starts crying. She goes, "You ain't gonna believe this." And then she tells me that. She unloads that on me. I'm like, unbelievable. A week later, they called us and said, she has a half-sister that was just born. And we went from an emptiness to a fullness, like literally overnight. This is where it seemed like. The activity picks back up again with us. When they came to be with us, they came out of a very horrible condition, a very horrible situation. In this family, there was a half-brother and half-sister that were in the occult practice. Witchcraft, and their dad had committed suicide. They also had 2 cousins in the same family. Father-son commit suicide. The dad committed suicide too. 3 years later, son committed suicide. This whole family line was completely played. It was just a very nasty, bad situation that these girls were brought out of. I started having these nightmares. I would be asleep and feel this dreadful, overwhelming fear come into the room. It's always the dark shadow, figure of a man that walks to my side of the bed. It reaches for my throat. It tries to choke me. I am fighting with everything I got, just to say the name of Jesus. It takes every ounce of strength. Once I get the name out, then the hands receive. And I just keep saying it until I wake up. And I'll wake up in a full flesh fight mode. It started after we adopted our girls. And then I started traveling all over the United States, in Encoun on Alta. I was working my first job out of town in Bradenton, Pennsylvania. I was staying at the Holiday Inn Express, right there on the river. I was sharing a room with a guy that worked night shift. But he wasn't there. I was turning in for the night. I got that overwhelming feeling of dread and terror come over me again. I watched this black figure of a man come through the door and get real close and start to grab my neck, start to squeeze. Again, the fight is on to get the name of Jesus out of my mouth. I have probably had one of these episodes. from probably 2014 too. I think the last one I had was probably a few weeks ago. Pretty brutal. Me and my wife and my daughters were coming home. Who just turned down our road? There's a greenhouse on this country road, and there's a street light. On the opposite side of the greenhouse, there's a home. We had just turned at the light and started down our road when I seen this 10 or 11-year-old girl on a razor scooter widening right across the road. My daughters were like, "Dad, what is that?" The face is a pale. Dick looked like death. A dead face, pale, sunken, hollow eyes. It was wearing a jacket with fur around the face, staring right at us, and went right across the road and vanished into thin air. I stopped. Stop right in the middle of the street. The light actually dimmed as this thing crossed the road. I backed up, turned my brights on, shined them, because I was like, where did that kid go? There was nobody around. My wife said, just go to the house. It just makes you think, where do these things go? If you don't have the power to get rid of them, they just what? Do they just take up shop at your house? Do they just mess with you? Move. Moving on around August of 2021, my wife came to me and she said, "Hey, you ain't gonna believe this." I said what she said, "I'm pregnant." We've been married, this is year 19 for us. I was excited and I couldn't believe it. I grew this house. I'm like, we gotta pass. We gotta buy a house. We ended up finding perfect house. Right there in the middle between church and work. It's perfect. She had moved in April 2022. Ate her first meal April 4th, 2022. Down the road from us, the trailer park. And there's a lot of bad activity that happens. This trailer park, a lot of drug use. A lot of meth cops are coming and going. My middle daughter, being the social butterfly that she is, she made friends with a girl that lived in the same apartment. She said, I want her to stay the night. I like to take her to Sunday school. I said, I work. That's fine with me. I don't care. This little girl comes over and we feed her a good meal. We're getting ready for bed. On a matter of fact, I'm in bed. These girls come running down the hallway, down to my room, busting my door like, yeah. He saw something. He saw this giant shadow walking down the hallway towards us. I said, this is what we're gonna do. I said, we're gonna go living room. We're gonna pray. We're gonna get rid of this thing. This little girl's looking at me. She said, I've seen this before. It's at my house. It changes colors. I looked at her. I said, honey. I said, I want to tell you something. I said, you didn't do anything wrong. You're gonna pray about it. I'm gonna help you. She's crying. He started praying. I felt that heaviness lift. I told him, I said, we're good. Y'all go to sleep. We'll see you in the morning. With the rampant drug use in this adjacent neighborhood, I believe that there's residual spirits that are out. I was sitting in my living room one night, minding my own business. But out of the corner of my eye, I seen something manifest in my kitchen. It was just a brief second. I was looking right into my kitchen. It went floating by, and it was another dead face that had just this ugly face. No eyes, just this ugly, dead-looking corpse on the face. And I've seen that twice. It's probably the start of this year. I was going to bed, and I got a big guard dog. He always lays next to my bed. He just starts growling, and I hear this. Right in my doorway in my closet. Am I really hearing this? I thought about David, and when David slew Goliath in the Bible, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fear whatever this is, because I got something greater. I just fell asleep, I just went to bed, and that was that. But I will tell you, there are good times that I've got up in the middle of the night, thinking my Lord and my will. One of my dogs have an accident in the house. I'll smell putrid, like absolute putrid smells, like what in the world? Like just pure death. I'll go look around, there wouldn't be nothing there. And I'm like, okay, I know what this is. Every time I'm just getting out of a prayer. That's why. I guess really why I wanted to share my story. Because I've experienced this in High Amsterdam. And this is what I've experienced. Me, personally, I just believe it comes with the territory. It comes with what I'm doing. You can share your story with us by going to truescarystory.com and filling out the form. We're building a great community here, so thank you so much for your messages and reviews. You can support us and get the episodes without ads by trying out Scary, plus links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Voices in the Night. I was living with my mom and stepdad at the time. In their house, me and my mom. We were going through a period where we were kind of just lost with our religion. In spirituality, we had always been spiritual. But at this time, we both just felt a disconnect from everything. That's when everything started to manifest. The first incident was with one of my friend. We were on the porch one night, talking about how the summer had started, how we had just graduated. All of a sudden, we hear someone walking out the front door. So we look up. We see my mom. We assume she's taking out the garbage or doing something in the garden or something like that. We go back to talking, and not even a minute later, we hear the front door open again. We see my mom. We were looking at each other in disbelief. She asked, "What's wrong?" We almost scream at her like, "How did you get out here so fast?" What happened? She kept denying and be like, "No, I was not out here. I was inside. I was in the kitchen. We just ignored it. Maybe it was just our eyes or our minds playing a trick on us." 4 days later, my friend was over again. This time, we were in my room. I was on my phone, not really paying attention, but I was listening to what she was saying. All of a sudden, she went silent. I look up quickly. She has this mortified look on her face. I ask her what's wrong. What happened? She's sitting on the foot of the bed, looking at the edge, and she won't say anything. I finally look to see where she's looking at. I see a dent. Someone was putting pressure on the bed, or sitting on the bed. I was confused. 2 weird things have happened this week. That night, everyone had gone to sleep. My friend had left. It was probably around 1:32. I was thirsty, so I went downstairs to go fill up my water bottle. It was in my bedroom, the bathroom. And the bathroom was facing the bottom of the stairs. I walked 2 steps to the stairs. I'm about to walk down. I see this lady at the bottom of the stairs. She's 6 foot, maybe even taller. She took up most of the wall. She had dark hair, and she had this white dress. It had frills at the bottom and a short sleeve. I ran back into my room, closed the door. The next morning, I bring it up to my mom, and I tell her, "There's something going on in our house. I don't know what's going on." She brushes it off. She's like, "No, it's just our ancestors, don't worry. You'll be fine." In my gut, I knew that wasn't the situation. A few days later, after my mom and I talk about this, and she brushes me off. It's maybe 2:30, closer to 3 this time. I'm downstairs in the kitchen. Our kitchen was attached to a hallway, that LED to the front door. I was in the kitchen, and something was just telling me to look behind me. I look, and I see the woman from a couple nights ago. I turn away, quickly, look back, and she's gone. I was cooking something and I left it all on the stove. I ran upstairs. I was terrified. The next morning, my mom's like, "What happened? You left everything downstairs. Something's going on." And I'm like, "I told you, something's in the house." She says if something was here, I would be able to see it, or I'd be able to feel it. There's nothing here, trust me. It's just one of our ancestors. They're protecting us. I know it's something else, but she won't listen, so I try and forget about it again. One night, it was 3 a.m. I heard someone walking past my room. My parents, they're both. Not the type of people who would leave their room at night. They'd only really go to the bathroom. They wouldn't go downstairs for water or anything. Something just told me to go check on what it was. So I walk out my room. I see my mom walking down the stairs. In a quiet voice, I start saying, "Mom." I call her name 5 or 6 times as I'm doing that. I'm walking down the stairs trying to get closer to her when I am one step away from her, about to touch her. She turns around. I see her eyes. That's not my mom. The eyes were sunken in. You could tell it had no soul. I sprint up the stairs back to my room. I don't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I'm so spooked. I finally tell my mom, "You may not believe me, but something is in this house. We need to do something." She's like, "We can go see someone. They'll talk to us." My stepdad. He was friends with this man who was a babalawo, a priest of this religion called Aruba. We go to this man's house. He starts to do the consultation. My mom starts screaming and crying, wailing, screaming at the top of her lungs. I look beside her. She's pale. She's screaming. Her hair is in front of her face. I don't know what's going on. I leave the room. I can hear her screaming from outside. 15 minutes later, she finally stops the babble out, tells me to come back in the room. He starts explaining to us what happened. My mom, she let something into the house. This spirit, she was a woman who had committed suicide. She was depressed after losing her child in the house. He starts to ask my mom, "Can you think of something that you may have gotten, from a thrift store? Something that may have history?" She remembers that she was cleaning the basement, and something was drawing her to the back corner. There was this desk, was really heavy behind it. There was this door. In it, there was a bunch of heirlooms from the original owners, and their family, all their stuff was in this cubby. When my mom went in that room, she found this lamp or vase kind of thing. She took it out, and she put it in our living room. The Babalao, he realized, that lamp is what brought this woman to our house. As soon as that lamp came in our house, all these things started happening. My mom's energy completely changed. She went from being so energized to always wanting to sleep and always being so tired and so negative. She wasn't sleeping either. She was staying up until 3:30 every morning. Even my stepdad thought she was acting weird. He said that her personality had completely changed. The Babalao, he tells us, "I know what to do. I know how to get her back to the lamp." He does some things in our basement, some religious sacrifice or something. He eventually bounces her back to this lamp phase. That night, we threw it in the graveyard because he said that would be best, just as a precaution, to make sure it's away from our house. That night was the last time we ever saw or heard from that spirit again. And it wasn't the only time. My mom had invited something in never on purpose, in a house before this house. When my mom and my dad first got divorced, she had got this spirit board that she used with the pendulum. First, she started talking to people who she thought was her spiritual guides, guardian angels. They were telling her things she wanted to hear. We'll be here to protect you. You'll have more luck and love. We'll make sure to protect your daughter. Your daughter's going somewhere in the future. My mom, she was obsessed with it. Every day she was doing it. Over time, the messages just started getting super negative. One day, they told her, "We're gonna kill you. We're gonna burn the house down. We're gonna kill your daughter. We're gonna burn her in her sleep." At this time, my mom and we were getting into accidents. I was hit by a car. She had almost been hit by multiple cars. Dogs were attacking her out of nowhere. One time, our neighbor's dog, he was on a leash attached to the porch, and he just ripped out of it, and he ran across the street, jumped on her, and attacked her. Multiple dogs were doing that at the time, and we didn't really know what was going on. All we knew was that my mom was getting these messages, and it was dangerous. She decided to go back to Portugal, where she's from, to get advice from her family. She went to a medium there. She looked in her eyes, and she said, "Where is your soul? Your soul is at the back of you. Your soul's supposed to be in front of you. It's at the back of you. There's so much darkness around you. It's going to harm you." And my mom at this point, she goes to see another person, just to make sure. To validate, the lady says the same thing. "There's so much darkness around you. What did you do? Did someone do something to you?" My mom finally comes back. We move in with one of my friends and his dad. My mom just had to get me out of that house. She was terrified that something bad was going to happen. During all this period, too, I was having bad dreams. I was seeing dreams with blood on the wall. I had started having suicidal thoughts, and I was 10 at the time. So I wasn't even thinking of any of that at that age. And I just suddenly started having these thoughts when my mom and I moved to my friend's house, start using the spirit board again. His wife had died. She had also committed suicide when she was using the spirit board. The wife was telling her, like, "If you don't get out of my house, I'm gonna burn the house down." At this point, my mom's like, "We have nowhere to go, we have to move." We move in with my now stepdad for a few days. We're looking for a place. And my mom goes to the last medium she goes to before we move out. They tell her, "You have opened a portal. You using that spirit board opened a portal. And you let something in that's trying to harm you." And my mom realized that she had messed up. That week we packed our bags, moved to a new house. My mom kept in touch with the lady who lived upstairs, who was our landlord, the man who lived there after us. He lived there for maybe 2 weeks, and he apparently went crazy, packed his bags and left. Even the lady had to move out. No one could live there after that. My mom had let something in, but it had attached itself to the place after. She has completely stopped doing that. The religion we are in now doesn't really focus on that. We don't really talk to spirits in that way. She hasn't done anything like that for the past couple of years. Thankfully, everything's calmed down. If you have a scary story that you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story, and fill out the form. And if you want to support the show and listen completely ad-free, head on over to Scary Plus. Come or check out the Scary Plus links in your app. Right now, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon, everyone. Please listen to the story, A Final Message from Beyond. I'm Kalen. I host Heart Starts Pounding, a podcast of horrors, hauntings, and mysteries. It's a show for those with dark curiosities. We cover lots of paranormal, spooky, dark history, and true crime stories. And part of the reason why I'm really interested in those kinds of stories is because of an experience I had growing up, when I think I had a haunted piano in my house. Back in the day, my dad bought a piano from an estate sale. There was a man who passed away, and he had this upright piano from the 70s or 80s maybe. I don't know how old it was. So my dad, who was a piano player himself, bought it and brought it to our house. We're like, oh my God, yay. I was probably like 5 years old at the time. So I started taking piano lessons, and I would sit and I would play this piano. And there was always kind of like a weird vibe to it. Right when you walk in the front door, it was to the left, and to the right was the stairs. And I remember it was around the time we got the piano that I would start, like running up the stairs to get to my room. Like I couldn't ever at night walk by this room. I always had to run, because I would always get really spooked. It just had a weird vibe, but during the day it felt okay. So I would play the piano and practice. One day my dad and I are walking up the stairs, and we get to the point where, as you're walking up the stairs, eventually you can't see the piano anymore, because you get to like the second story. And just as my head clears the second story, and I can't see the piano anymore, my dad's in front of me. We hear the piano play. It's like something jumped on the piano. And immediately my dad's like, get the cat. We think it's maybe the cat jumped on the piano. I run downstairs. Cat's nowhere to be found. I'm like, Dad, I don't think the cat's down here. And we go upstairs, and the cat is sleeping on my dad's bed. And we both looked at each other, and both of us were like, whoa. And from that moment on, we kind of started joking that the piano was haunted. Fast forward about a year from then, I'm getting a little bit better at playing the piano. I can sit down and play a song by myself. So I'm sitting, and I'm playing the piano. And as I'm playing, I start getting this weird feeling. It's like the feeling that something's watching me. And I think, sometimes my dad would come in and watch me play. Whatever. And I'm thinking that my dad is behind me. So I'm starting to show off a little bit. I'm playing more and more. And I look down at my left hand, because I'm about to play a little bit with my left hand. And at the bottom of the piano, the lower register, the 3 lowest notes, all pressed down together, as if a hand was on the piano pressing them. But nothing else was touching the piano. Just the 3 lowest notes all pressed down together. They make the noise, and then they come up, and I bolted out of the room. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It felt like someone was standing behind me. And then I watched the piano play by itself. So I run out, and my dad's like, what's going on? What happened? And I'm like, the piano played itself. It played by itself. I don't know what's going on. And it was another moment of us just being like, oh, that's very spooky that something's going on. Over the years, some weird stuff like that would happen. A note would play by itself. I would be upstairs. I would hear the piano kind of make a noise. And not that. It was like a funny joke that the piano was haunted. But we knew when it played by itself. We were all like, that's the haunted piano. And we'd all get a chill, like it always stayed scary to us. but we tried to cope with it by laughing about it. The weirdest thing that happened was when I was 14 years old, my grandmother passed away. She was really old. It was very expected. And it was June when she died. So it was summertime, school had just ended. It was maybe the day after she died that I was home, playing the piano. And I was thinking to myself and playing the piano. And next to us, we had this box of sheet music. And we always cycle through the sheet music every year. So Christmas music comes out during Christmas. But on off season, it's at the bottom of the box. It's so far away from me to be able to pick up, which is important to the story. But I'm playing the piano, and all of a sudden behind me as I'm playing, and I'm thinking about my grandma, and I'm really sad. I start hearing something kind of whooshing through the air behind me, as if a piece of paper is kind of gently falling behind me, and then I hear paper kind of grazed the wood floor behind me. And I turn around and there's a piece of sheet music that looks like it's been ripped out of a book. And that is a huge faux pas in my house. You do not rip sheet music out of a book. You open the book and you fold it. Or you find something to hold the pages open. But every book has to remain intact. So I turn around and I'm none of us ripped a piece of sheet music out of a book. And it was just one page by itself. And I pick it up, and it's Away in a Manger, the Christmas song. And I just get this really weird feeling why is one piece of sheet music, which is way packed away at this point of the year, ripped out of a book this? It just did not feel like us. But I end it something came over me that was you need to play this song right now. This sheet music just came out of nowhere. So I put it on the piano and I start playing it, and I hear my dad running through the house, barreling towards the room I'm in. And he has tears in his eyes and he's like, "Why are you playing Away in a Manger?" And I was like, it's gonna sound crazy, but this piece of sheet music just appeared from nowhere, and I just felt like I had to play it. And he was like, "Growing up, that was your grandmother's favorite Christmas song." And both of us just started crying. It was we didn't even have to say it. But in that moment, we were she wanted me to play that song one more time. And I don't know if the piano was some sort of conduit, a portal of some sort. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, I don't know if it just had some sort of connection where she was able to make that last request through the piano, specifically. But after that, nothing weird ever happened with the piano again. That was the last thing. So, we have Kaylin here with us from Heart Starts Pounding. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I do have a few questions about it. Do you know where the piano came from and all of that? I don't know exactly who it was or the house. I just know, and I asked my dad later on, exactly where he got it from and all. He knows is that a guy passed away, had the piano, and he went and bought it for cheap. And you always hear something about the haunted piano, like in some classic stories, but never heard one, on the show. I know, yeah. It is kind of like a haunted house kind of trope. But no, it really was for us a very real thing. Wow. We got rid of that piano a few years later, and then upgraded to a nicer one. And there's been nothing weird with it. 'Cause it was like a new piano. It's just that one. When all this stuff was happening, did you ever talk with anybody else in the house about it? Just my dad. I mean, my dad was the only other person that played the piano. so we were really the only two interacting with it. I have a sibling who's also in the house and was like, always thought that the house was haunted in some way. Like always felt, and same thing. Like even to this day runs past that room, just from growing up. Like always having that weird feeling. But it was mainly just my dad and I that were like, something's going on, we don't know what it is. But something's going on, wow. So like it was normal for you then to like, oh, this thing is haunted, I would say? Yeah, normal in a way that was still scary though. Like we still were freaked out by it being haunted. It was like one of those unspoken things though, that both of us were like, the piano's haunted. No one for a second was like, yeah. But I don't know if ghosts are real. Maybe something else is going on. Both of us were just like, no, it's haunted. That's bizarre. Yeah, it was very bizarre. Oh man, very bizarre. Thank you, Kaylin. And everyone make sure to check out. Heart starts pounding. Did you buy secondhand items? And have you suspected any of them to be haunted? Let me know, remember, that you can get ad-free episodes and support what we're doing by trying out Scary Plus. And if you have a story, go to truescarystory.com. I'll link to everything in the description of this episode. If you're following the show, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon. My name is Edwin. And here is Jim Harold's True Scary Story. Hi, I'm Jim Harold. I do a podcast called Jim Harold's Campfire, and real people come on and tell their stories. Every week we do about 90 minutes of real stories from real people, and occasionally we will put these together for a book. And just recently I came out with True Ghost Stories, Jim Harold's Campfire 6, and this is what I think is one of the most frightening stories in the book. And this one's about a curse. This was John from Idaho, and I'm going to share the story in his voice. John's story. John says, I kept this story to myself for many years, primarily for fear of ridicule. I probably wouldn't believe it had I not been there. My father ran a painting business in the late 70s and early 80s, employing several people. One of the men wasn't working out. My dad decided that he needed to let him go. I don't remember why I was home that particular day, but I witnessed the entire incident. I was only about 10 years old. This man came to our house on the day in question, as all the men did every morning, before going out to perform their assignments. My dad pulled the worker aside and said, I'm going to have to let you go. This just isn't working out. And the fellow, Molly, became very upset, and he said, You can't fire me, my dad replied. Why couldn't I do that? The man said, Because I'm Jesus Christ. What do you say to that, my dad says. You're not Jesus Christ. You're fired, and you need to leave. This man was obviously very upset. He looked at all of us and said, I curse you, I curse you. I curse your family. I place this curse on you. And you will have bad luck from this point on. Now you always hear about curses, but you rarely see the real thing. We didn't think too much of it because this guy seemed, well, somewhat unhinged. Now, this may or may not be the event that led to everything that followed still. It framed that way in my mind because it was directly after the curse that life began to go very poorly for our family. I hate to call it bad luck, but within a year, my mother became ill with cancer and passed away. Then my dad had a couple of multi-million-dollar lawsuits filed against his business due to a couple of freakish accidents. He lost his business, got ill, and died within a couple of years. With the context of all this going on, some extraordinary things begin to happen. Around the house, started to stray out of the area of terrible luck into my mind, the paranormal. I recall minor incidents. I was walking through the house and heard a knocking on an inside wall. Not an outside wall, but an inside wall when I was home by myself. It was a very loud, clear knocking. That sort of thing continued for some time, and we could never figure out why. And I'd be up a lot in the middle of the night, and I remember looking out our front yard and seeing someone standing underneath our willow tree at 2 or 3 in the morning. That was after my mom passed, and my initial thought was that my eyes were playing tricks on me, and I was only seeing a shadow. But it was one strange shadow. On more than one occasion, I saw it detach itself from the tree and move away. Life was tough within a few short years. My mother died then, my grandmother. My only surviving grandparent died, and my father passed as well. The intensity continued to ratchet up until this one night. It was 1980, and I was asleep in bed when I had a dream, which was absolutely horrible. In it, I began to see this green fog come up the stairway. And then, out of the mist, I saw my mother and grandmother emerging. But they weren't ordinary people. They were crawling along the ceiling. With claws and fangs, it was just a terrible, terrible dream. I woke up with a start, very shaken, but clearly cognizant that this was just a dream. And at that point, I felt pressure on my chest, pushing me down into my bed and holding me there. Of course, I'm familiar with sleep paralysis, but I don't know how to think about it. Sometimes I considered it a purely physical phenomenon. In other times, I believe there was a supernatural component that may exist. And when I experienced it, it felt anything but physical. As a matter of fact, it seemed like what I believe they call the old hag syndrome. That seemed to be a lot more appropriate. Because not only was I unable to move, but I felt pressure pushing me down into my bed. Then, as I was fully awake, struggling against that force, I heard a voice whisper my name very loudly. Clearly next to me, it said, "John." I still couldn't move. I was obviously scared to death in trying to shake this off. Finally, the pressure was released. I jumped out of my bed and quickly went toward my light switch. Underneath it, I saw something very hard to describe. Words fail me, and I don't know what to call it. Maybe a creature. It stood about 3 foot tall. It was red and had a scaly body. Very thick, was about the size of a fire hydrant. At least that's what it reminded me of. Around its head, going all the way around in a circle, were small horns protruding outward. I saw it, I stopped. And I'm telling the truth. It opened its mouth and it laughed at me. I leapt to the side, turned on the light switch, and there was nothing. I was very shaken at that point, questioning my sanity. I went downstairs into the living room. I sat down in a chair. I put my head in my hands, trying to make sense of the world. Opposite me, our television set. Well, it turned itself on. We didn't have a remote control. It was 1980. You had to physically go over to the deviant Bolivian about I didn't turn it on. And I know it. It powered on by itself. Stations didn't broadcast 24/7 back then, so there was only static on the television. I didn't know what to do. I got up, shut it off, and looked out the front window. There was that shadow again standing. I don't remember what happened from there. except to say I tucked this away as best as possible into the back of my psyche, thinking nobody would ever believe this. If you said I felt a touch, I heard a kick, that's one thing. But to claim I saw a creature that I could see and describe, that's likely to be dismissed. But there it is, that's my story. After my father died, everything seemed to just turn around. It was a strange series of horrible coincidences for those few years, if that's what they were, coincidences. I have my doubts. It was just one tragedy after another, and I wouldn't have tied it together had I not seen that man point at us, look us in the eye and say, "I curse you. I curse you. I curse you." And that's the story of John from Idaho, from the files of Jim Harold's campfire. So what do you think I mean? To be clear, that's John's story, not mine, thank goodness. But are curses possible? Can we be cursed? And I do believe in the triumph of good over evil. But I also think evil exists, and I believe curses are real. And they can have real impact, and I believe they had a real impact on John. What a story. It's really awesome to be on the show with Edwin, and love what he does. And we do our own little version of true ghost stories that you can find Jim Harold's Campfire anywhere you find podcasts. And we do it every week, 90 minutes of people calling in. Very kind of raw and just their first-person experiences with the strange and supernatural. And also, I have a series of books, True Ghost Stories, Volumes 1 through 6, Jim Harold's Campfire. You can find those mainly on Amazon's, the best place to find them. Don't have to read them in any certain order. Every book has 65 to 70 spooky ghost stories in it. And not just ghost stories. We have some cryptid stories and so forth, but we've been doing those for a year. So we hope that you get to check it out, and you add Jim Harold to Campfire in your rotation, along with the great podcast you're listening to now, True Scary Story. Thank you so much for being on the show, Jim. If you want to hear my story, through an interview with Jim, go check out his podcast over on the Paranormal podcast and let him know I sent you. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you. Please listen to the story, A Townhouse Terror, The Night I Faced the Unseen. My story takes place in Alberta, Canada. I was raised here, but I was born in Mexico. And my parents moved us up here when I was 6 years old. In Mexico, we grew up hearing lots of stories from relatives and my own parents about paranormal activity. They had experienced themselves, or weird phenomena that they just couldn't explain. It wasn't odd for me to acknowledge and accept that there were things beyond my understanding within that realm. When I was 21, I was living with some roommates in an old townhouse. My roommates and I rarely got to see each other. All at the same time, we worked very different schedules. We would usually see each other on the way in or out of the house. The house itself was probably built in the 70s or 80s. It was quite old. You could hear creaking all the time. If anyone walked up and down the stairs, you could hear it very clearly. Even walking into the kitchen, you could hear. I was just getting ready for bed. I went upstairs to my room. They didn't have curtains for my window. I would just close the blinds at nighttime, and I would still get a lot of light, from street lights or even the moonlight. I had placed my bed right underneath the window. It was just the darkest spot in the room, where I slept comfortably. On this night, I was really struggling to fall asleep when I heard the front door of the house open. I heard steps come up. Then my door rattled. I'm thinking, oh, One of my silly roommates has come home drunk and thinks that this is their room. I lived with two guys, and they were very protective of me. I was like their little sister. The rattling on the doorknob stopped, and I heard the footsteps go back downstairs and out the door. I just didn't really think anything else of it and kept trying to fall asleep. 10 minutes later, someone is behind me. That pressure you feel on a bed or on the mattress when someone is leaning in. I had that feeling behind me. My thought was, oh, one of my roommates is checking up on me. And as I'm waking up, a bit more out of that weird daze you're in, right before you fall asleep, I realize my bedroom door is locked. I'm sleeping on my side. My back is towards the wall where the window is. I opened my eyes. I knew something was wrong. I shouldn't be able to feel anything behind me. When I opened my eyes, the light in the room started to disappear, as if someone was pulling a curtain over my window. This light was just disappearing. From the corner of my eye, I could see something at the end of my bed. I just grabbed whatever courage I had in that moment. I looked over at the edge of my bed was a large, dark figure. I could see the silhouette, but it couldn't quite make out if it was a person. Just a dark figure. The only distinct feature was red glowing eyes. I couldn't move. I just laid there staring at this thing in front of me. It launched right at me. It came so close, it was almost right in front of my face, hovering above me. It leaned in just a bit more. Then it growled. A deep growl. I don't even know if I could imitate it. It didn't sound natural. Right after it did that, it started to disappear. It was evaporating before my eyes. When it was fully out of sight, all the light in my room came back in. I instantly sat up and I thought, oh my goodness. What just happened? I thought. You need to call Mom. She'll know what to do. I grabbed my phone. I called my mom. She goes, okay, what you need to do right now is hang up the phone and start praying. For protection, for guidance, just keep praying. Start singing whatever church songs that you remember. But you need to do that right now. Whatever that was might not be in sight, but something could be lingering, and you need to bring some good energy into the room. I said, okay, I will. So hung up immediately. Started praying out loud as much as I could, because my voice was so shaky. I was crying. I started singing. I couldn't get past the one song that I kept singing. I just kept singing it over, and I couldn't think of any other song. My mind went blank afterward. I just was stuck on this one song. A few days later, my roommates and I just happened all to be home at the same time. I said, hey, did anyone come home around 3 the other night and come upstairs and accidentally try and get into my room and left again? They were like, they weren't home at all nights. I wish I could say that I knew what it was, just so I could make sense of it. I don't know if I'll ever really know what it was that I faced that day. The women in my family particularly. Something is always testing us. So maybe this was my moment where evil forces or entities were testing me to see if I would show fear or if I would face it. Like my mom has faced a lot of things. She has seen dark figures, big wolves. My aunt has also seen spirits. My grandma, my cousins. We've all seen or dreamt or felt something, and I'm glad. That was a lesson my mom instilled in us. Was you don't show fear. Don't let them see that face of fear. It doesn't matter even if you are scared. You cannot show them fear because that's how they win. Something else did come to mind that I wanted to share because it's so common for, like, our family to talk about this stuff. We grew up being really close friends to a family that lives on a reserve near us. The husband is a chief. The wife is an elder. They're well respected in their community. They're the ones who taught me how to do blessings on myself with sage, and how to bless my home, and how to protect myself from energies with the teachings of the indigenous, which I profoundly respect. Their teachings mean a lot to me, and learning all that has really made a difference for me, even if you don't really know how to do it. The way they are trying to show you, you still have full power within yourself to cast things away or request that the good energies and the healing spirits, good spirits, bring light into your life. People think that they're completely helpless without these extra instruments, but we have all the power. We're the ones with flesh and bone. Like, these are just spirits and entities trying to get their way with us however they can. But we're the ones with the real control. I've embraced that part of my life. And I have no problem with calling myself a bruja. In my own way, I am. My grandma and great-grandmother on my father's side considered themselves white witches. My great-grandma was on her deathbed. She was so scared she kept saying, "They're coming for me. I don't want to die. They're coming for me." She asked the grandkids to go get my dad. My dad was the only one who was religious. She said, "Go get Alejandro. I need him to come give me a blessing, because I'm so scared." She hated religion, but she was so scared on her deathbed that she called for my dad to come bless her. She says she's a white witch, but who knows what she dabbled in. You shouldn't be that scared when you're dying. She was doing other stuff for sure. Sometimes we go into this gray area, but convince ourselves that we're still in the white. I remember my dad telling us that his grandma would practice. White magic people would come for her for, like, healings, love spells and stuff. Love spells is not white magic. You're interfering with people's will. That's not white. That's not pure. Life is a delicate balance, and when you start messing with certain things, go out of balance. And I feel like that's when things go sideways, and people end up with illnesses or money troubles, and it's not even always by their own hand. Someone they have, like, Rugeria put on them. So there's just an imbalance in energy, and that's when things go wrong. White witches, those with knowledge and power to help others with supernatural means, may not always be who they say they are. Do you have any experiences with brujos? Brujas or white witches? Black magic. How'd it go? Tell me about it. You can find my contact info and ways to join our community by using the links in the description of this episode. And if you want to listen without ads while supporting the show, you can try out Scary Plus if you have a story that you want to share with all of us. Visit truescarystory.com. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story Chased by Spirits, my family's paranormal Encoun. I grew up in this really tiny town called Cleveland, Utah. The house was known as the very first post office in this really small town when Utah was founded. It was so old that when we did some renovations on the house, we would cut into it and see that it was logs on the inside. That's how old it was. It was an old log post office. My mom and dad decided to create a bedroom in the attic space upstairs. they cut a hole in the ceiling and built these really rickety, steep kind of stairs that went up into this little attic space. The top right corner of the room would be where the stairs would come up, right at the top of those stairs. In the bottom right corner was my bed, up against the wall, right in that corner, right there across the room. In the bottom left corner would be my sister's bed, and then in the top left corner was my brother's bed. I used to see this really dark shadow every night. I would wake up in the middle of the night. Somebody was in the room with me watching me. I would open my eyes, and there would be this dark shadow standing over by my brother's bed. Staring down at him, it was the shape of a man, but it was just a really dark shadow. That would stand there. It would move from my brother's bed, and it would just float across the room, standing over the top of my sister's bed watching her. If I felt myself waking up, I would keep my eyes closed and wait for my brother to move, or wait for my sister to move, and then I would open my eyes. Then he would be standing right by me, staring down at me, watching me sleep. I was so scared I would take all of my stuffed animals, put them all the way around me, and then I'd take the biggest stuffed animal that I had, and I'd put it right over the top of me and tuck it in to make it look like. The stuffed animal is the one sleeping in the bed. I think around in my teenage years, we moved out of that house, and I didn't have any other experiences growing up until later in life when I met my husband. We had all of our kids at that time, and he was stationed in the Air Force, and he got deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan. He got deployed to Korea for a year. One of the funny things about me and my husband, we were really into the TV show Ghost Hunters. There was this one episode where they went to the Stanley Hotel. It's the actual hotel that Stephen King himself was staying in when he had those experiences. That scared him so much that he wrote the book, The Shining. This hotel is over 100 years old in Estes Park, Colorado. It's gorgeous. On this episode, they decide that they're going to split up into these separate rooms in the hotel that are known for the most paranormal activity. In the hotel, one of them is on the 4th floor, room 412. Back to me and my husband. My husband is deployed to Iraq. I want to surprise him with something. Just pretty cool for him coming home. He's been gone for 6 months. I decided he was going to book us a stay at the Stanley Hotel so that we can go investigate ghosts. I decided to book that exact room 412. We drive to the Stanley, and you walk into this hotel, and there's this big staircase. It goes up the center, and then it splits off to the right and the left on both sides, and you can go up to the other rooms. Next to the staircase, it has this really awesome, super old elevator that is, one of those metal elevators that you have to close the gate on. Old, rickety, and really loud. We get our key for the room, so we get in the elevator and we go upstairs. Step off the elevator, and the room that is haunted is right next to that elevator. We get in the room and go check out the closet. This closet is 100 years old, full hard wood. It's got one of those really old doorknobs on it that are really hard to turn. It's super heavy. On the backside of the closet is that elevator. We check that out. We check the room out. It was really pretty. It had a really old bathroom in it. The really super old Victorian sink with on the inside. We decided to go get some dinner and walk around the hotel for the rest of the evening until bedtime. So nothing happened to us that night. When we were walking around checking out the hotel, and we took the tour. The tour guide was this really cool, old guy that had actually done the tour for ghost hunters. When they came, he was their tour guide. We noticed that on our tour. The guy goes right up to the room we're staying in, stood outside of the door, and sit there and tell the stories about what happens in there, how people have lost things. Me and my husband are just sitting there thinking, yeah, we're staying in this room tonight. We even told the people that were on the tour with us. We're like, yeah, this is our room. We're going to stay in there. You guys want to look in there? And they were all pretty excited to go in and check out the room. And we ended the tour and went to eat dinner. And then we went back up to the room. And it was time for bed. We decided that we were going to go and take a shower. Together, we're in the bathroom, talking about how nothing's happened to us. It doesn't seem very creepy. There was 3 bulbs in this one light fixture above the bathroom sink. As soon as we were talking about this happening, the light bulbs all shattered. We got out of the shower and called downstairs. I told the lady at the desk what had happened. She said that they were going to send somebody up to come and take care of it. Things like that happen all the time in that room. I just don't know what could have caused that. They came up, they cleaned it up, they left the room, and me and my husband get into bed. And we're laying there, and I'm trying to go to sleep. This bed is facing the closet. So if you're sitting up in bed, you're looking right at the closet. I get this really dark, heavy feeling. There is something in this room. I open my eyes. I look up. Right above the bed is a fan, a ceiling fan, and right next to the ceiling fan, there is this woman floating there. She had a really long, dark hair. I'm looking at her. I start grabbing my husband's arm, shaking him, and I'm like, honey, do you see her? She's right there. And I'm hyperventilating. He wakes up, sits right up, and he's like, where? Where? And I'm like, she's right there in front of us. At that point, she starts moving towards me. And I take a breath and I'm like, hi. She stops, tips her head sideways. We laid down to go back to sleep, and I could not go to sleep. The morning after, we went downstairs to go tell the people that I had an experience. There's a tour guide there. And I tell her what had happened to me last night. And she kind of just, yeah, that happens all the time. It seemed like she didn't believe me, didn't take me seriously. We decided we were going to go look around the town and check out the hotel more. It's pretty big. It's got a few outbuildings too. We spent the day just being tourists. We get back to the hotel. My husband decides what he's going to do. He grabs this little L, no smoking sign that is sitting on top of the dresser, and he's going to put it right in front of the closet door. Slide it right under it just in case something happens. We go to sleep, and nothing else happens that night. The next morning, the closet door is closed, but the little LS sign was out in the middle of the floor. I'm feeling really uneasy about staying in this hotel and room because we had one more night there. I call my mom. I'm bawling. I don't want to stay here. And my husband's being a sweetheart, sitting there telling me it's going to be okay. We just got one more night. Let's just stay here. And I said, okay, we'll just stay because it was paid for that night. Actually, nothing happened to us. We just woke up and left to go back home. I would absolutely stay at the Stanley Hotel again. The hotel was beautiful. The food was amazing. From their little old-fashioned restaurant. And the rooms were really comfortable. Really scary, but really comfortable. I would not stay on the 4th floor again. Not at all, not in any of the rooms on the 4th floor. Forget it. Throughout our marriage, we have had quite a few paranormal, inexplicable things that have happened. After we went and stayed at the Stanley Hotel, we had moved out of the house that we were staying. At the time, we moved on to base housing at Hill Air Force Base. Cabinet doors would open and close. You would hear whispers or voices throughout the house. When I was in my room laying on the bed, I would be reading, and right above the book, I would see this little boy's head just quickly dash past the bottom of the bed. One other instance. Me and my husband were laying in our bed watching TV. All of a sudden, all of the stuff that was in our bathroom, fell off of the shelves into the bathtub. Another time that I was laying in bed, all of a sudden, I felt these little steps stepping next to me, from my feet all the way up to my head. And I turned and I looked, and there was nothing there. We decided that we wanted to name this little ghost. And I'm like, how about we name him Billy? At that exact same time, my husband said that in his head popped the name Billy. After this house, we had moved off a base. It was Halloween, and we felt this ghost presence had followed us. Because same thing started happening in this other house. I took my kids to go see my mom for Halloween. While we were there, I was on the phone talking to my husband, and all of a sudden he says, there was a little boy that just ran across the floor, down the bed, out of the corner of my eye. The kid ran across the room. We're sitting there talking about it, and then all of a sudden you hear in the living room the sound of one of my Halloween decorations go off. This Halloween decoration, it was broken. The motion active part of it was busted, and it was an old gravestone that would crack open and scream at you. The only way for it to go off was for somebody to push it. We moved to Montana. We had a bunch of things happen in that house. My children saw these things. My son Lincoln, he is very sensitive. A couple of days ago, I was in my room. My son's girlfriend. I was going to show her something on my phone. I was walking down my hallway, passing the kitchen, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my son standing in the kitchen. In front of the sink, his back was to me. I thought, okay, I'm going to go show Lincoln first. When I turned to look into the kitchen, he's not there. He is not there. There is nobody there. He comes walking in through the family room. In the back door, I explained to him. This ghost, or mimic, or whatever this was, looked just like him. I have no idea what that was. But it scared the crap out of me. That's the first time something's happened to me, personally, in this house. I'm hoping nothing else happens here. I'm almost over the whole ghost thing. Haha, balding. We have had other situations where we would be sitting out on the porch. We live up in Willow, Alaska. It's a really tiny town in the middle of the forest. We have neighbors that aren't very close to us. We would be sitting out on the porch, and you would hear strange howls, moans, and growls over in that forest. Over there, across the lake, we're avid hunters. We know what it sounds like when a moose is in heat. Just doesn't sound anything like that. Me and my son and his friends, we always talk about shapeshifters up here all the time. Skinwalkers is a big deal in Alaska. A skinwalker can take certain forms of people or things. I don't know if it could have possibly been something like that. I can't tell you. I really have no idea what it could possibly have been. I don't know if it's the places that we've lived in, or if it's because my side of the family, is so sensitive to ghosts, or if it's Lincoln himself. If he attracts these things coming to us everywhere that we've been, in all of the houses that we've lived in. I haven't really been very scared, even though we've had these experiences happen to us. Every time I'm thinking that we're in a new place. It's gonna be great. There's nothing gonna happen. Then something happens. You can share your story with us over at True Scary Storycom, and to listen without ads and support the show at the same time. Visit scaryplus.com. If you're following the show, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Everyone, see you soon. Everyone, please listen to the story, The Shadows Are Watching You. I'm originally from Chicago, Humboldt Park. My mom was a single mom. We lived with my grandfather. We would move around a lot. They didn't have the best relationship. Unfortunately, he had practiced black magic. When we left from Humboldt Park, we moved to a small town in a suburb close by. My grandfather, grandma, uncle, they lived upstairs. It was a constant arguing. That's why a lot of negative stuff came into the house. He would do everything in his power to try to get us away from my mom, as if he wants bad things to happen to my mom. We always had a weird vibe in our house. My older sister would constantly say, "Oh, there's someone here. I feel something. There's negative energy. I don't know what it is." That didn't make us feel secure, especially when we had spirits and negativities around us. My mom got pregnant. We moved in with my mom's boyfriend, right next to this church in the area where we are. That's when the downfall really happened. My mom would work really late. We would hardly see her. One day she called me downstairs. She said she really needs to talk to me. I was actually pregnant. I didn't tell her because of how young. I was 17 at the time. She's like, "Oh, I had a dream that your grandpa came into my dream. And he said, please be careful. Watch your surroundings, be careful who you're around, who you let enter to your house." And I thought, okay, she's gonna tell me I'm pregnant. Then she starts crying, and I'm like, what's the matter? I'm like, oh my God, like she knows that I'm pregnant. And she says, I seen someone. And I said, someone, like, what do you mean? And she says, I've seen a shadow. And you're the only person I'm telling this to paint out this picture. My mom and stepdad and little sister, they lived in the basement. There was just one room that was finished. The rest of the basement was really old, and we had originally bought this house from an old couple who, her husband had recently died. She felt like it was a man. She's like, oh, maybe it's the man's spirit. He's here, but why does it feel so evil? Back when she saw him, she was in the room folding laundry. She felt presence looking at her, but there was no one else. Everyone was in school. My stepdad was at work, and my little sister was like 4 months old when she felt his presence. She turned over to look at the first door, where the entrance is to the basement. She sees the man in black shadow. She screams and asks, "Who are you? What do you want?" Immediately picks up my little sister, because at first, she said she thought someone had entered the house. Out of nowhere, the man leaves. My mom was like, did I imagine this? Am I seeing something? Am I tired? She stayed in the basement for like an hour. She went upstairs. She checked the dining room, kitchen, bathroom, everywhere. She didn't see anything. This was months later. It was pretty early. 7:38 in the morning, I walked downstairs, lay down, drifted back to sleep. Like I said, it was pretty early. It's really hard for me to wake up. I'm a very deep sleeper. Something heavy was in the presence of the room that I was in. I felt someone was watching me. I look up, and there Black Otto is. People ask me, how does he look? What is he wearing? It's literally nothing. It's just black in the shadow. I was so tired, I just went back to sleep. In 2017, we moved to a bigger house, a couple towns down to fit the entire family. My dog, he would constantly, bark at the walls or bark at the window. For some reason, my son, every single night, he would cry. He would wake up cry. We would put him on our bed, and we would find him at the bottom of the bed or on the floor. I was slowly starting to think, maybe it's the presence of my mom. When my sister was a couple months, my sister was diagnosed with a tumor in her eye. None of us has any genetics of having tumors or cancers, or anything in that nature. My mom was confused. Oh, why did this happen to my child? My mom went to a tarot, or we called them a white witch, the good kind, not the evil kind, and they had told her, there is someone who is wishing bad upon you, your daughter, and my stepdad. So my mom went and did this kind of religion. I don't know what it is, I feel like. That plays a part of why negative stuff happens to us. Because my mom would try to find the easy road. If it didn't work, go to another religion. I feel like my mom was allowing different spirits to come into our home. The last religion she's in, they would do sacrifices to animals, chickens and goats and things like that. She would make us go with her sometimes. I would find her, sometimes putting pictures up of her boss and lighting up a candle and wanting to wish bad upon him. She initiated me to be in this practice that she was in. I told her, are you sure this is holy? This is what this is for, so I can be closer to God. And she's like, yeah, this religion, this practice gets us closer to God. You wear these beads around your neck, different color beads. When I moved out of her house, I laid those beads on the table, and I was not going to take that with me. Because I'm not part of it. So it's why are you haunting me or coming after me? You can stick with my mom. Eventually. My sister got better from the tumor in her eye, but negative energy latched onto my mom. When we went to a new apartment a couple towns over, everything was fine. We never fought. My son was great. He was the happiest baby ever. That's when I'm maybe it is my mom. Because whatever someone put towards her, it's latched onto her. I'ma keep my distance. We moved into this apartment nearby. That's the one that I'm in right now. A couple years ago, in 2020, my husband decided to go with his best friend to Vegas. It was just gonna be me and my 2 kids. I asked my sister if she can stay, and help me. I put one to sleep in his room and one to sleep in mine. My sister tells me, oh, I'm gonna go do something. This was at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I told her, wake me up when you get back, so I can sleep with the baby. And she's okay, fine. I'll see you give me your keys. Blah, 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 okay. I fell asleep and woke up in my dream. I look up, that's exactly how I left it. The TV is on my son's next to me. My eyes are adjusting. I see the shadow man. It's been forever since I've seen him. In seconds, he was from the door right next to my shoulder. And he grabbed my shoulder. I start yelling and screaming. I can feel it in my body that I'm screaming. My sister wakes me up, and it's her. She was so scared, are you okay? Calm down. It's me, I told her. I'm oh. There was a man by the door. He was in my dream, standing right there looking at me. And then he grabbed me and she was like, oh, that's why you screamed, I barely touched you. I was tapping your shoulder for a good minute. calling your name, I asked her. Are you sure you didn't grab me? She's like, no. I was just tapping you, like with my hand. I sleep with my oldest son. He has special needs and my husband sleeps literally just across the room from me to sleep with my youngest son. A couple weeks ago, we were talking. The light was on. The fan was on high. So I told him, can you turn down the fan? I don't know why you have the fan so high. Turn it down and turn off the light before you leave. He says, okay, babe. Turns on the fan, turns off the light. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow morning, okay? From there, I don't even remember going to sleep. I am in my dream. I see my husband walking out of the door. I don't see his face. Just the back of his head and his body leaving the door. I'm screaming, babe. You forgot to turn off the light. And then something immediately clicks in my head. Wait, this already happened. I look up, and the minute I look up to the light, it turns off on its own. The black shadow is standing inches away from me. I grab the phone, turn on the flashlight, and I'm pointing to his face. It's all black. He slowly backs up to the corner. I jump up, turn on the light from the string. He's gone. Now I wake up fully, and I'm standing in real life. Turn on my hand on the string to turn on the light. With my phone in my hand, with the flashlight on, I'm looking around. I'm like, where did he go? Where did he go? My son is sound asleep. I turned off the light quickly again, took my phone, went to the other room. The minute I open the door, he wakes up and I'm like, did you hear me calling you? And he's like, oh, I thought that was a dream. I swear I heard you saying, babe. But I felt like I was dreaming because I was falling asleep. So I told my mother-in-law the next day. She's a really religious person. And she's like, you really need to pray. My sister already told me that. She had an experience with this shadow man also. This is another sister that experienced it in my house. It's almost the same experience she was like, in the couch in my living room. She felt something watching her. When she turned around, the man was by the door looking at her. She just turned back around and went back to sleep. When I would talk to my husband about this, he asked, what if it's your grandpa who passed away? I considered him as a father. It can't be him, because if it was him, why would my grandpa hide his face? What does he want? I want to see who this is. Why does this person keep bothering us? It doesn't hurt us. It just watches us. That's the disturbing part. Why are you watching us? Like what? What are you trying to gain from watching us? I hope he doesn't bother my kids. I wouldn't want my kids to go through that and be scared. They do have their moments where they're like, why? I don't want to go to the living room unless you turn on the light. My oldest son, if I get up to use the bathroom, or if I get up to get ready, he runs to my side like he cannot stay by himself. He'll run to the next room to be with my son, my other son, because he would not be by himself. I don't want them to experience anything. Tell us about your true scary story by going to truescarystory.com and filling out the form. Your story could be shared with all of us. To listen ad-free, check out Scary Plus through scaryplus.com or get in touch with me directly. If you have questions about it, I'll leave links to everything in the description of this episode. When I tried sending my story the first time, it wasn't allowing me to send it. I filled out the form, but then the whole emote turns blank. Like it's still blank to this day. So my husband on my baby doesn't want to send. He's like, oh, I was trying to tell you something. The man doesn't want you to expose him. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Something Evil Lurks in My Grandmother's House. In Ikibin Uch. I was roughly 5 or 6 years old. Me and my family had just gotten back from a vacation. In Texas, we all stayed at my grandmother's house because it was closer than ours. And almost everybody was exhausted from the long drive. I had slept off and on in the car, so I was almost wide awake, but not fully. It was around, I want to say, 2 a.m., and I was in the living room watching one of my DVDs. I got through about half of it, and I heard the poor creak from upstairs. Then footsteps came down the stairs, and they stopped at the bottom, and there was another creak in the kitchen. I figured it was my cousin, because he would always come downstairs and get, like a midnight snack or something. But after a few minutes, I didn't hear him go back up. It was around 15 minutes later. The kitchen floor creaked again, heavier and louder before. At the time, there was no possible way for the floor to creak that much under his footsteps. My parents would always tell me that it was just my imagination whenever I would hear certain sounds. So I believed them at the time. I ignored it for a minute, and out of nowhere, everything in the room just felt heavy. I turned around, and I looked into the kitchen. That was the first time I saw it. It was staring directly back at me. It was a big, black, shadowy mass. It had very light, small piercing to red dots, which I'm just assuming were its eyes. It had a face, however. It was just blurry and disoriented. I tried to scream, but no sound came out because I was just that terrified. It didn't move at all. It was just standing there in the corner. After a few minutes, it just disappeared through that door. That's right next to the stairs. That leads to our laundry room. It went just straight through the closed door. I ran straight upstairs. Once that heavy feeling was gone, I stayed in my parents' room for that night. I didn't sleep. We went back to our house. A couple days later, that's when I mentioned to my mom exactly what I had saw. Her response was the same as it always was. It's just your imagination. We'll make sure your cousin stops watching scary movies around you. I didn't sleep well for about a month after that. At this point, I had grown insomnia and sleep paralysis from seeing this thing. Looking back at it, I feel like she believed me. However, at that time, I think that she just didn't want to scare me. She started to burn sage around the house almost daily. I never knew exactly why at the time, but the shadow person went away. One experience that I had, without that same shadowy mass, thing was just shadows around the house. If I went into the kitchen or something, I would see one in the corner of my eye. But whenever I would turn my head, it would just go back behind the wall it was, or go back behind whatever it was behind in the first place, almost as if it didn't want to be seen. It was the day of my 12th birthday. Everything went well, and I had the average birthday party that a 12-year-old would have. All my family, my friends, it was just a big party. Everybody had left already because it was around 11 p.m. I was in bed, almost about to fall asleep. I decided to turn on my TV. I don't know why, but I fell asleep. I woke up, I felt like I couldn't breathe correctly. And the energy in the room, once I became aware, it felt the same as it had before. at my grandmother's house. I opened my eyes. That is when I saw it for the second time. It was standing at the edge of my bed this time, just staring back at me, with the same red eyes as it had before. My door across the room from me slammed. I screamed and my mom rushed in. Within a matter of seconds, it was gone. My mom was yelling, "What happened? What happened? Are you okay?" Just over and over and over. And then she sat on the bed with me, trying to comfort me. I looked at her, and her face was just pale. I had 3 long scratches on my chest and bruising around my neck that almost looked like fingerprints. The first thing she said after noticing these things was, "You're not sleeping in here anymore," after about a week of me not sleeping in my bedroom anymore. She decided to start cleansing again. That didn't work this time. I don't think it was enough. My parents began arguing, which wasn't like them. They've always been a very happy couple. At that point, they were together for a little over 20 years. Everybody in the house just became extremely negative. Within a few months, they had gotten divorced. I remember 2 months after they divorced. My mom had called my grandma to come over. I had no idea what they were talking about. But after that, my mom just became severely religious. She would constantly pray over me in my room. She would constantly bless the house. She was doing more sage than before. She had put up crosses everywhere in the house, and it was just a constant cycle. We continued this for months, and at this time, she got sick. It was cancer, which came completely out of nowhere, like cancer usually does. The timing of it just wound up a little bit too much. That's when she decided that we are going to need professional help. She started getting a priest to come around because she didn't have the energy from the chemo to do everything like she was before. So he would bless the house twice a week. I think it was. And he would bless my cousin. He would bless me, my mom, just everything. It seemed to be helping, but it was just too much. I think for everybody. And my cousin ended up moving out. He was 17. Me and my mother were still severely negative. But after he left the house, about a week after he was just back to his normal self, I was still having the same shadow. The ones that just hide when I look at them. They never would scare me. So I wasn't necessarily scared of them, because there wasn't any bad energy. When I would see them, unlike with the other thing, it was a Sunday morning and my mom had woken me up, way earlier than she normally would, and me being a very moody teenager. I was like, "Ma, what do you want?" And then she said this, in a tone that was just heart-stopping, if that makes sense. Because my mom isn't a very serious person. She's always been very bubbly, like I was before all of this happened. She sat on my bed on the edge of it, and she was like, "We need to talk." This was the moment that changed everything for me, for the rest of my life, including today. The first thing that she said was, "I believe you." My jaw dropped pretty much. She finally had told me what her and my grandmother had spoken about. That day, she told me what my grandma had done years prior to their conversation. It was the 70s. She had wronged a lady, and the lady had threatened to curse us. That would follow through. The women in the bloodline. It obviously didn't want to believe it. But my mom was very shaken up as she was telling me this. She described the same shadowy figure, like the one that had the very heavy energy. She described that to a team, and we had been seeing the same exact thing. It's just been a pattern. My mother has a sister as well, a twin sister, and she had a baby girl. that is my cousin, and the same thing happened to her. I almost had a sense of relief, because I wasn't the only one. My grandma hadn't mentioned anything to my mom until that one day they sat down and had to talk. This was the point where everything slightly goes blank. I don't remember much from that day, but right after she told me that information, then she let me know that it's not gonna go away, and that it's never gonna go away. Anyone who knew me knows that I have always wanted to be a mother. So, when my mother told me that I wasn't gonna be able to have a baby girl without risking her having the same trauma, and that seeing that same figure as us, to say the least, I was very heartbroken. After I learned that it was bloodline related, I moved out and I moved into a small house now. I'm now 21 and I am married. I still see that shadowy mass pretty frequently because I'm not cleansing the house like my mother and the priest were doing before to make everything stop. I was going to church, but that was all I could really do. So I have now come to terms with the fact that this is not gonna go away, and I'm still gonna see that same thing, regardless to what I do, considering it's only physically harmed me once. I just don't bother with it. When I see it, I'm obviously terrified, but I feel as though it can't really hurt me anymore, because I'm not letting it. When the first and the last physical attack happened, I was 12, so I feel as though I couldn't really force it not to hurt me. But now that I am older and I have matured more, it just stands in the corner now. I still have minor experiences with the shadow people who duck behind the doors, but I'm still not getting anything bad from them. I think they're just lost, honestly, and they're not quite sure how to move on. I am no longer living in Arizona. I visit pretty frequently, just because my mother is here. I'm so haunted by this on a daily basis, and I hope that my story would help somebody who's going through something similar that is borderline related, would make them feel less alone, which is the whole reason why I'm sharing this. You can support the shows and stories by trying out Scary Plus, or dropping some stars for us in the reviews. If you liked it, don't forget to tap follow so you get next week's story. If you want to share a story with the rest of us, head on over to truescarystory.com. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story Chased by Spirits, my family's paranormal encounter. I grew up in this really tiny town called Cleveland, Utah. The house was known as the very first post office in this really small town when Utah was founded. It was so old that when we did some renovations on the house, we would cut into it and see that it was logs on the inside. That's how old it was. It was an old log post office. My mom and dad decided to create a bedroom in the attic space upstairs. They cut a hole in the ceiling and built these really rickety, steep kind of stairs that went up into this little attic space. The top right corner of the room would be where the stairs would come up. Right at the top of those stairs, in the bottom right corner, was my bed, up against the wall, right in that corner, right there across the room. In the bottom left corner would be my sister's bed, and then in the top left corner was my brother's bed. I used to see this really dark shadow every night. I would wake up in the middle of the night. Somebody was in the room with me watching me. I would open my eyes, and there would be this dark shadow standing over by my brother's bed. Staring down at him, it was the shape of a man, but it was just a really dark shadow that would stand there It would move from my brother's bed, and it would just float across the room, standing over the top of my sister's bed watching her. If I felt myself waking up, I would keep my eyes closed and wait for my brother to move, or wait for my sister to move, and then I would open my eyes. Then he would be standing right by me, staring down at me, watching me sleep. I was so scared I would take all of my stuffed animals, put them all the way around me, and then I'd take the biggest stuffed animal that I had, and I'd put it right over the top of me and tuck it in to make it look like. The stuffed animal is the one sleeping in the bed. I think around in my teenage years, we moved out of that house, and I didn't have any other experiences growing up until later in life when I met my husband. We had all of our kids at that time, and he was stationed in the Air Force, and he got deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan. He got deployed to Korea for a year. One of the funny things about me and my husband, we were really into the TV show Ghost Hunters. There was this one episode where they went to the Stanley Hotel. It's the actual hotel that Stephen King himself was staying in when he had those experiences. That scared him so much that he wrote the book, The Shining. This hotel is over 100 years old in Estes Park, Colorado. It's gorgeous. On this episode, they decide that they're going to split up into these separate rooms in the hotel that are known for the most paranormal activity. In the hotel, one of them is on the 4th floor, room 412. Back to me and my husband. My husband is deployed to Iraq. I want to surprise him with something. Just pretty cool for him coming home. He's been gone for 6 months. I decided I was going to book us a stay at the Stanley Hotel so that we can go investigate ghosts. I decided to book that exact room 412. We drive to the Stanley, and you walk into this hotel, and there's this big staircase. It goes up the center, and then it splits off to the right and the left, on both sides, and you can go up to the other rooms. Next to the staircase, it has this really awesome, super old elevator, that is, one of those metal elevators that you have to close the gate on, old, rickety, and really loud. We get our key for the room, so we get in the elevator and we go upstairs. Step off the elevator, and the room that is haunted is right next to that elevator. We get in the room and go check out the closet. This closet is 100 years old, full hard wood. It's got one of those really old doorknobs on it that are really hard to turn. It's super heavy. On the backside of the closet is that elevator. We check that out. We check the room out. It was really pretty. It had a really old bathroom in it, the really super old Victorian sink with on the inside. We decided to go get some dinner and walk around the hotel for the rest of the evening until bedtime. So nothing happened to us that night. When we were walking around checking out the hotel, and we took the tour. The tour guide was this really cool old guy that had actually done the tour for ghost hunters. When they came, he was their tour guide. We noticed that on our tour. The guy goes right up to the room we're staying in, stood outside of the door, and sit there and tell the stories about what happens in there, how people have lost things. Me and my husband are just sitting there thinking, yeah, we're staying in this room tonight. We even told the people that were on the tour with us. We're like, yeah, this is our room. We're going to stay in there. You guys want to look in there? And they were all pretty excited to go in and check out the room. And we ended the tour and went to eat dinner. And then we went back up to the room. And it was time for bed. We decided that we were going to go and take a shower. Together, we're in the bathroom, talking about how nothing's happened to us. It doesn't seem very creepy. There was 3 bulbs in this one light fixture above the bathroom sink. As soon as we were talking about this happening, the light bulbs all shattered. We got out of the shower and called downstairs. I told the lady at the desk what had happened. She said that they were going to send somebody up to come and take care of it. Things like that happen all the time in that room. I just don't know what could have caused that. They came up, they cleaned it up, they left the room, and me and my husband get into bed. And we're laying there, and I'm trying to go to sleep. This bed is facing the closet. So if you're sitting up in bed, you're looking right at the closet. I get this really dark, heavy feeling. There is something in this room. I open my eyes. I look up. Right above the bed is a fan. A ceiling fan, and right next to the ceiling fan, there is this woman floating there. She had a really long, dark hair. I'm looking at her. I start grabbing my husband's arm, shaking him, and I'm like, "Honey, do you see her? She's right there." And I'm hyperventilating. He wakes up, sits right up, and he's like, "Where? Where?" And I'm like, "She's right there in front of us." At that point, she starts moving towards me. And I take a breath and I'm like, "Hi." She stops, tips her head sideways. We laid down to go back to sleep, and I could not go to sleep. The morning after, we went downstairs to go tell the people that I had an experience. There's a tour guide there. And I tell her what had happened to me last night. And she kind of just, "Yeah, that happens all the time." It seemed like she didn't believe me, didn't take me seriously. We decided we were going to go look around the town and check out the hotel more. It's pretty big. It's got a few outbuildings too. We spent the day just being tourists. We get back to the hotel. My husband decides what he's going to do. He grabs this little L, no smoking sign that is sitting on top of the dresser, and he's going to put it right in front of the closet door. Slide it right under it just in case something happens. We go to sleep, and nothing else happens that night. The next morning, the closet door is closed, but the little LS sign was out in the middle of the floor. I'm feeling really uneasy about staying in this hotel and room because we had one more night there. I call my mom. I'm bawling. I don't want to stay here. And my husband's being a sweetheart, sitting there telling me it's going to be okay. We just got one more night. Let's just stay here. And I said, "Okay, we'll just stay because it was paid for that night." Actually, nothing happened to us. We just woke up and left to go back home. I would absolutely stay at the Stanley Hotel again. The hotel was beautiful. The food was amazing. From their little old-fashioned restaurant. And the rooms were really comfortable. Really scary, but really comfortable. I would not stay on the 4th floor again. Not at all, not in any of the rooms on the 4th floor. Forget it. Throughout our marriage, we have had quite a few paranormal, inexplicable things that have happened. After we went and stayed at the Stanley Hotel, we had moved out of the house that we were staying. At the time, we moved on to base housing at Hill Air Force Base. Cabinet doors would open and close. You would hear whispers or voices throughout the house. When I was in my room laying on the bed, I would be reading, and right above the book, I would see this little boy's head just quickly dash past the bottom of the bed. One other instance. Me and my husband were laying in our bed watching TV. All of a sudden, all of the stuff that was in there, our bathroom, fell off of the shelves into the bathtub. Another time that I was laying in bed, all of a sudden, I felt these little steps stepping next to me, from my feet all the way up to my head. turned and I looked, and there was nothing there. We decided that we wanted to name this little ghost. And I'm like, how about we name him Billy? At that exact same time, my husband said that in his head popped the name Billy. After this house, we had moved off a base. It was Halloween, and we felt this ghost presence had followed us. Because same thing started happening in this other house. I took my kids to go see my mom for Halloween. While we were there, I was on the phone talking to my husband, and all of a sudden he says, there was a little boy that just ran across the floor, down the bed, out of the corner of my eye. The kid ran across the room. We're sitting there talking about it, and then all of a sudden you hear in the living room the sound of one of my Halloween decorations go off. This Halloween decoration, it was broken. The motion active part of it was busted, and it was an old gravestone that would crack open and scream at you. The only way for it to go off was for somebody to push it. We moved to Montana. We had a bunch of things happen in that house. My children saw these things. My son Lincoln, he is very sensitive. A couple of days ago, I was in my room. My son's girlfriend. I was going to show her something on my phone. I was walking down my hallway, passing the kitchen, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my son standing in the kitchen. In front of the sink, his back was to me. I thought, okay, I'm going to go show Lincoln first. When I turned to look into the kitchen, he's not there. He is not there. There is nobody there. He comes walking in through the family room. In the back door, I explained to him, this ghost or mimic or whatever this was looked just like him. I have no idea what that was. But it scared the crap out of me. That's the first time something's happened to me, personally, in this house. I'm hoping nothing else happens here. I'm almost over the whole ghost thing. Haha, balding. We have had other situations where we would be sitting out on the porch. We live up in Willow, Alaska. It's a really tiny town in the middle of the forest. We have neighbors that aren't very close to us. We would be sitting out on the porch, and you would hear strange howls, moans, and growls over in that forest. Over there, across the lake, we're avid hunters. We know what it sounds like when a moose is in heat. Just doesn't sound anything like that. Me and my son and his friends, we always talk about shapeshifters up here all the time. Skinwalkers is a big deal in Alaska. A skinwalker can take certain forms of people or things. I don't know if it could have possibly been something like that. I can't tell you. I really have no idea what it could possibly have been. I don't know if it's the places that we've lived in, or if it's because my side of the family, you know, is so sensitive to ghosts, or if it's Lincoln himself. If he attracts these things coming to us everywhere that we've been, in all of the houses that we've lived in, I haven't really been very scared, even though we've had these experiences happen to us. Every time I'm thinking that we're in a new place, it's going to be great. There's nothing going to happen. Then something happens. You can share your story with us over at True Scary Storycom, and to listen without ads and support the show at the same time. Visit scaryplus.com. If you're following the show, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Everyone, see you soon. Everyone, please listen to the story Chased by Spirits, my family's paranormal encounter. I grew up in this really tiny town called Cleveland, Utah. The house was known as the very first post office in this really small town when Utah was founded. It was so old that when we did some renovations on the house, we would cut into it and see that it was logs on the inside. That's how old it was. It was an old log post office. My mom and dad decided to create a bedroom in the attic space upstairs. They cut a hole in the ceiling and built these really rickety, steep kind of stairs that went up into this little attic space. The top right corner of the room would be where the stairs would come up, right at the top of those stairs. In the bottom right corner was my bed, up against the wall, right in that corner, right there across the room. In the bottom left corner would be my sister's bed, and then in the top left corner was my brother's bed. I used to see this really dark shadow every night. I would wake up in the middle of the night. Somebody was in the room with me watching me. I would open my eyes, and there would be this dark shadow standing over by my brother's bed. Staring down at him, it was the shape of a man, but it was just a really dark shadow. That would stand there. It would move from my brother's bed, and it would just float across the room, standing over the top of my sister's bed watching her. If I felt myself waking up, I would keep my eyes closed and wait for my brother to move, or wait for my sister to move, and then I would open my eyes. Then he would be standing right by me, staring down at me, watching me sleep. I was so scared I would take all of my stuffed animals, put them all the way around me, and then I'd take the biggest stuffed animal that I had, and I'd put it right over the top of me and tuck it in to make it look like. The stuffed animal is the one sleeping in the bed. I think around in my teenage years, we moved out of that house, and I didn't have any other experiences growing up until later in life when I met my husband. We had all of our kids at that time, and he was stationed in the Air Force, and he got deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan. He got deployed to Korea for a year. One of the funny things about me and my husband, we were really into the TV show Ghost Hunters. There was this one episode where they went to the Stanley Hotel. It's the actual hotel that Stephen King himself was staying in when he had those experiences. That scared him so much that he wrote the book, The Shining. This hotel is over 100 years old in Estes Park, Colorado. It's gorgeous. On this episode, they decide that they're going to split up into these separate rooms in the hotel that are known for the most paranormal activity. In the hotel, one of them is on the 4th floor, room 412. Back to me and my husband. My husband is deployed to Iraq. I want to surprise him with something. Just pretty cool for him coming home. He's been gone for 6 months. I decided he was going to book us a stay at the Stanley Hotel so that we can go investigate ghosts. I decided to book that exact room 412. We drive to the Stanley, and you walk into this hotel, and there's this big staircase. It goes up the center, and then it splits off to the right and the left, on both sides, and you can go up to the other rooms. Next to the staircase, it has this really awesome, super old elevator, that is, one of those metal elevators that you have to close the gate on. Old, rickety, and really loud. We get our key for the room, so we get in the elevator and we go upstairs. Step off the elevator, and the room that is haunted is right next to that elevator. We get in the room and go check out the closet. This closet is 100 years old, full hard wood. It's got one of those really old doorknobs on it that are really hard to turn. It's super heavy. On the backside of the closet is that elevator. We check that out. We check the room out. It was really pretty. It had a really old bathroom in it. The really super old Victorian sink with on the inside. We decided to go get some dinner and walk around the hotel for the rest of the evening until bedtime. So nothing happened to us that night. When we were walking around checking out the hotel, and we took the tour, the tour guide was this really cool, old guy that had actually done the tour for ghost hunters. When they came, he was their tour guide. We noticed that on our tour. The guy goes right up to the room we're staying in, stood outside of the door, and sit there and tell the stories about what happens in there, how people have lost things. Me and my husband are just sitting there thinking, yeah, we're staying in this room tonight. We even told the people that were on the tour with us. We're like, yeah, this is our room, we're gonna stay in there. You guys wanna look in there? And they were all pretty excited to go in and check out the room. And we ended the tour and went to eat dinner. And then we went back up to the room. And it was time for bed. We decided that we were gonna go and take a shower. Together, we're in the bathroom, talking about how nothing's happened to us. It doesn't seem very creepy. There was 3 bulbs in this one light fixture above the bathroom sink. As soon as we were talking about this happening, the light bulbs all shattered. We got out of the shower and called downstairs. I told the lady at the desk what had happened. She said that they were going to send somebody up to come and take care of it. Things like that happen all the time in that room. I just don't know what could have caused that. They came up, they cleaned it up, they left the room, and me and my husband get into bed. And we're laying there, and I'm trying to go to sleep. This bed is facing the closet. So if you're sitting up in bed, you're looking right at the closet. I get this really dark, heavy feeling. There is something in this room. I open my eyes. I look up. Right above the bed is a fan, a ceiling fan, and right next to the ceiling fan, there is this woman floating there. She had a really long, dark hair. I'm looking at her. I start grabbing my husband's arm, shaking him, and I'm like, honey, do you see her? She's right there. And I'm hyperventilating. He wakes up, sits right up, and he's like, where? Where? And I'm like, she's right there in front of us. At that point, she starts moving towards me. And I take a breath and I'm like, hi. She stops, tips her head sideways. We laid down to go back to sleep, and I could not go to sleep. The morning after, we went downstairs to go tell the people that I had an experience. There's a tour guide there. And I tell her what had happened to me last night. And she kind of just, yeah, that happens all the time. It seemed like she didn't believe me, didn't take me seriously. We decided we were going to go look around the town and check out the hotel more. It's pretty big. It's got a few outbuildings too. We spent the day just being tourists. We get back to the hotel. My husband decides what he's going to do. Is he grabs this little L, no smoking sign that is sitting on top of the dresser, and he's going to put it right in front of the closet door. Slide it right under it just in case something happens. We go to sleep, and nothing else happens that night. The next morning, the closet door is closed, but the little LS sign was out in the middle of the floor. I'm feeling really uneasy about staying in this hotel and room because we had one more night there. I call my mom. I'm bawling. I don't want to stay here. And my husband's being a sweetheart, sitting there telling me it's going to be okay. We just got one more night. Let's just stay here. And I said, okay, we'll just stay because it was paid for that night. Actually, nothing happened to us. We just woke up and left to go back home. I would absolutely stay at the Stanley Hotel again. The hotel was beautiful. The food was amazing. From their little old-fashioned restaurant and the rooms were really comfortable. Really scary, but really comfortable. I would not stay on the 4th floor again. Not at all, not in any of the rooms on the 4th floor. Forget it. Throughout our marriage, we have had quite a few paranormal, inexplicable things that have happened. After we went and stayed at the Stanley Hotel, we had moved out of the house that we were staying. At the time, we moved on to base housing at Hill Air Force Base. Cabinet doors would open and close. You would hear whispers or voices throughout the house. When I was in my room laying on the bed, I would be reading, and right above the book, I would see this little boy's head just quickly dash past the bottom of the bed. One other instance. Me and my husband were laying in our bed watching TV. All of a sudden, all of the stuff that was in there, our bathroom, fell off of the shelves into the bathtub. Another time that I was laying in bed, all of a sudden, I felt these little steps stepping next to me, from my feet all the way up to my head. And I turned and I looked, and there was nothing there. We decided that we wanted to name this little ghost. And I'm like, how about we name him Billy? At that exact same time, my husband said that in his head popped the name Billy. After this house, we had moved off a base. It was Halloween, and we felt this ghost presence had followed us. Because same thing started happening in this other house. I took my kids to go see my mom for Halloween. While we were there, I was on the phone talking to my husband, and all of a sudden he says, there was a little boy that just ran across the floor, down the bed, out of the corner of my eye. The kid ran across the room. We're sitting there talking about it, and then all of a sudden you hear in the living room the sound of one of my Halloween decorations go off. This Halloween decoration, it was broken. The motion active part of it was busted, and it was an old gravestone that would crack open and scream at you. The only way for it to go off was for somebody to push it. We moved to Montana. We had a bunch of things happen in that house. My children saw these things. My son Lincoln, he is very sensitive. A couple of days ago, I was in my room. My son's girlfriend. I was going to show her something on my phone. I was walking down my hallway, passing the kitchen, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my son standing in the kitchen. In front of the sink, his back was to me. I thought, okay, I'm going to go show Lincoln first. When I turned to look into the kitchen, he's not there. He is not there. There is nobody there. He comes walking in through the family room. In the back door, I explained to him, this ghost or mimic or whatever this was looked just like him. I have no idea what that was. But it scared the crap out of me. That's the first time something's happened to me, personally, in this house. I'm hoping nothing else happens here. I'm almost over the whole ghost thing. Haha, balding. We have had other situations where we would be sitting out on the porch. We live up in Willow, Alaska. It's a really tiny town in the middle of the forest. We have neighbors that aren't very close to us. We would be sitting out on the porch, and you would hear strange howls, moans, and growls over in that forest. Over there, across the lake, we're avid hunters. We know what it sounds like when a moose is in heat. Just doesn't sound anything like that. Me and my son and his friends, we always talk about shapeshifters up here all the time. Skinwalkers is a big deal in Alaska. A skinwalker can take certain forms of people or things. I don't know if it could have possibly been something like that. I can't tell you. I really have no idea what it could possibly have been. I don't know if it's the places that we've lived in, or if it's because my side of the family, is so sensitive to ghosts. Or if it's Lincoln himself. If he attracts these things coming to us everywhere that we've been, in all of the houses that we've lived in. I haven't really been very scared, even though we've had these experiences happen to us. Every time I'm thinking that we're in a new place, it's gonna be great. There's nothing gonna happen. Then something happens. You can share your story with us over at True Scary Story.com and to listen without ads and support the show at the same time. Visit scaryplus.com. If you're following the show, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Everyone, see you soon. Everyone.